Good morning. It's Tuesday. I'm running late. It's fine. Doesn't matter. We're still here. It's okay. Hello, friends. And let me fire off a couple notes to folks to let them know that I am live, because I didn't say that before. Yeah, we're doing it. Okay, here we go. We're doing the thing. Finding links to stuff. Boy, was I prepared today. Unbelievably prepared. Can you all believe how prepared I was? Just gonna drop these notes. A few other spots. And that's going to be good enough for now. Hello, friends. What's up? What are y'all doing? How's your day? What is happening this fine Tuesday in March? In Portland, it is threatening to be sunny, but it has not yet done so. So I'm sitting in the cloudy weather, having a coffee. What's up, Bridgewater? How are you? Okay, so I wanted to talk today about a project that I'm going to take on, because I feel like I have. So my tendency is for perfectionism, and my perfectionism comes in the form of maximization. And what I mean by that is that I have a tendency to take anything that I could do and then imagine the most, like, no rules, no budget, no budget restrictions, do whatever you want kind of thing. And so, by the end, I'm imagining like pyrotechnics and like, expensive stunts and IMAX cameras and stuff. And the vision of what it could be, I can see something so cool in my head that it deters me from doing what's possible, because I want to hold off and do things what I consider to be the right way if I take that like gear maximization to its fullest extent, right? And so I'm trying to shortcut that, and I've tried this a million times. My friends have talked to me about this a bunch. There are many of you watching who have probably heard me talk about this before, where this is like my Achilles heel. I love to do things big, and a lot of times I will do things big at the expense of doing things at all, and I'll like hold off, and I'll try to find that sponsor or the company that'll pick up the bill or whatever it is, so that I can do things the way that I imagine they should be done instead of doing anything. And that has prevented me from getting a lot of stuff out into the world that I think could have been good, right? And I have a lot of ideas now that I still want to exist, but I've been talking myself into waiting until I have enough time or whatever. So you may have seen my my video yesterday, which I will share a link to that. I put it through, let's see, where did I put it? I put it on all the channels, but I'm starting this new challenge for myself. So I'm going to share a link to the playlist where that's going to live. And that is this one here. I guess let me get out here and actually show my screen a little bit. We'll go here and present. Here's the screen. All right, so this is what I'm starting. Is I'm doing this do it anyways thing, and the intention for me here is severalfold. The biggest one is I want to get out of this habit of overcomplicating things in my head, and I want to instead build a habit of making something within the constraints of what I have time for and what I have the gear for, as opposed to delaying because eventually I'll have the thing that I want or whatever. Because the other thing that I'm realizing is that if I keep waiting to make stuff at the level that I want to make it, I'm always going to be disappointed when I make that stuff, because I won't have the requisite experience of making things without the gear. And so everything will feel like I'm doing it for the first time, even if even if I have all the gear, I won't be able to like fully execute, because I'll be lacking the necessary experience and the necessary reps to be able to focus on like the big thing that if I want to do like a big crane shot, I want to be focused on that, as opposed to all the mechanics of shooting something, right? I want to have done that part a million times, so that when I get to the fun thing that I've never tried before, I get to put all my energy into that, and like make that thing the best version of the thing that it could be. I also need to recognize and internalize that something like a crane shot doesn't make a video. Like if I have nothing to say, if I've got no story, the thing that I make doesn't matter if I've got a drone shot or a really cool dolly shot or something. Like, it just doesn't matter. That stuff isn't going to be, like, nobody's going to watch it, right? Because it's not interesting. I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing with toys. And like a cool technical shot can be cool, but like it has to be in service of something. So I need to get better at the stories, at the delivery, at getting the reps in, so that when I get a chance to do these more technical, ambitious things, they're in service of the art that I'm already doing, if that makes sense. And so the way that I'm framing this for myself, and what I've kind of got going in my head here, is I want to challenge myself to make a video every day, and I'm not going to count my live stream. So I'm going to make some short video, probably about 3 minutes, every day for at least the next 2 weeks on weekdays. And my motivation for that is, again, to just get the reps, to get better at trying something and like maybe learning like one technique. So as an example, you can see here, I got to try a couple things like this text disappears, and then here I got to like edit in some text behind me. And so I'm still learning stuff. I'm still trying new techniques. I'm not just saying like, I'm going to set up my iPhone and give up on the filmmaking part of it, but I have to contain my ambitions. Like, I wanted to do more with this, and I had to stop myself because I wanted to post it yesterday and not hold it over till today. And I need to make a video today, right? And so if I keep like putting things off, they're going to pile up and I won't get them shipped. And so that's the whole point of this is I really want to be thinking about how do I make something that's as creative as I can be within the confines of having roughly 2.5 hours max to work on it. That's for filming, that's for editing, that's for everything. And if I'm going to do that, there's some stuff that I just can't make faster. Like, you have to generate subtitles, you have to do a thumbnail, you have to do, like, there's all sorts of things that they just take finite amounts of time, which means that if I'm going to get this stuff done, I have to get really efficient at having my idea, having some clarity on what I want to do, making sure that I get the footage that I need, and then editing very quickly to get to the point where I could publish it and be happy, and then just using any remaining time to play with ideas, like putting in the animated text or interacting, tracking something against the environment to see what happens. So that's where I'm at. That's what I want to talk about today. And now I'm looking at the chat. What's up, Sid? How you doing? Patrick, good to see you. V-Dog. Let's go. Good to see you. I mean, I'd watch my crane shots too. Like, I think they would be really, really fun. The challenge is just like, if all I was doing, like, I can make one behind the scenes video where I say, look at this cool crane shot, and that's fun because you can say, wow, this is a cool technical shot. But if then I make videos and the videos are me like rambling about something incoherent and it's just a 3-minute crane shot while I do nothing interesting, what benefit does it serve, right? It's just me showing off. But yeah, like the shorter videos I think is a big deal because it's one, I mean, with the amount of time that I have to make the videos, going longer is going to get rambly no matter what. So trying to make something that's the right length that I can give it the love and care that it needs and be able to edit it well. It just puts some really natural constraints on like how much time you realistically have. And so a lot of this is inspired by, if you have seen, let's see, what is it Chantastic on YouTube as well? Yeah. So Chan has been doing this series that I love. He's been calling it the layoff log. And this is so good. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. There's just some really, really good information in here. Like and also just like the storytelling is so stellar. And so, you know, like I watched this one, for example, and this is so good because it is the most simple thing in the world, but it's, you know, it's honest. You can tell that Chan is just kind of speaking from his heart, and the edit is simple, but not cheap, if that makes sense. Like, it's still a good edit, despite the fact that this is a very simple shot. And I think that's what makes it good, is it's this sort of very honest thing. And he picked a cool angle, and he's not at his desk. He's just sitting in his hallway, right? And I love that he sat in front of his kids' drawings, and just think, you know, these little touches that were creative, that fit inside of a very constrained shooting schedule. And that's the sort of stuff, like, you know, I would have overcomplicated this to the point of thinking I needed to build a set or something. He just found a cool angle and sat down and shot. And I think that's so good. And then another person whose stuff I've been watching and super inspired by is Mark Texan, who I think is on YouTube. Mark Texan, yes. So Mark does this just absolutely incredible series called Good Mornings with Mark. This is so good. Like, if you haven't seen this, you gotta watch it. It's amazing. And I think this is like, you can see the influence of what Mark is doing in what I did yesterday, right? Because it's simple, it's brilliant, it's direct to camera. It's, you know, he just has a lot. He's got a lot going on in these, and they're very special. It's very carried by Mark's like positive energy and his charisma, and I think that is definitely good. What's up, y'all? Quantity has a quality all its own, is more deliberate practice. Yeah, it is definitely deliberate practice. Like, what I'm attempting to do here is very much force myself to work on the pieces that are the most important to me, which at this point are writing some form of story that is engaging enough. And I'm going to challenge myself to do a few different things, because I want to learn different technical techniques. One of the things that I've been thinking about is, like, if you watch Life Riza, which, if you've never seen this channel, it has nothing to do with tech, but she's very, very good, like ridiculously good. So watch this. I'm not going to play the audio because I don't want to get into anything, but like, look at how good this is. So that was super simple to shoot, but what a brilliant little touch. And she is narrating over the top of this the whole time, right? So I want to learn how to do this. And if you look at the complexity of this is not complex. It's just well shot, good B-roll. And that, I think, makes this really special. So, and she does a little acting too. Like, this is stuff that I don't, like, I don't know. I won't have time to do this kind of stuff because she's like setting scenes and things. But it's really, like, it's really special the way that she's doing this. And I think that this sort of stuff is just, it's good because it's embracing this sort of, you're getting a vignette of what it's like to be her. And I think that's so well done. And then I saw another one. This is just, we're doing a little bit of my references here. Natalie Lynn. And Natalie is doing this really cool thing with, like, This one, honestly, you just kind of got to watch this one because it's got a whole vibe with like the music and everything that's happening. But it's got so many good shots in it, and some of them are gear shots that I don't have. Like she's got a drone, she's doing cool stuff where she's like out in the desert driving her van around with a drone flying around her. But also like look at this, these types of shots. She shot these herself. She's setting up the angles. She's you know kind of deciding what these are going to look like, and she's able to create these very like movie quality shots. And it's just her out in the desert with her camera, right? This is brilliant. And I think that the constraints here are really notable because she is living out of this van and she's parked there. So she had this space and whatever was in her van to work with. There was no friend to call on. There was no, like, there's nothing she could have done to overcomplicate this shot. And so she just had to think about what would look good and frame it in this space in this exact moment, right? It's very, very clever, and it's just so well done. And like this also just makes my, like the idea of driving over my camera makes me want to cry. But anyways, there's some just like this is so good. It looks like a freaking movie, right? And so this is like the drone shot I'm talking about, and but she's just good. She's very, very good at this. Does a whole like creates a whole vibe in this movie. And it feels like a movie, right? Like I feel like calling it that isn't overselling it. So anyways, watch this stuff because this is sort of where my heart is and where I want to get to. And I'm trying to figure out how to do things like this without it becoming my entire life, because the OG of this, if you've ever seen Casey Neistat does these, like, I mean, they're so good. Like these are incredibly good. Let me maybe pull up one of his more popular ones. What is he? I don't know. I don't have a good one, so I'm just going to link to all of his videos. But this is the sort of stuff that only happens if you just practice over and over and over again. In fact, I will show you one little clip here. One of the things that I love about Casey's stuff is that as you watch, he instead of going for big graphics, he like makes little things like this. Like if you look at this throughout the course of the video, this evolves from being a blank sheet of paper. He's writing in the year, and then he's dropping down a card with his time, and then he's crossing things out, right? And so it's this very lo-fi, but so like it's framed well, it looks cool, but it took him probably by a small amount less time than it would have to do something digital, and it feels infinitely better. Like I just think this is such a brilliant approach. And it's got that, I don't know, it's like the Neistat brothers both do this. Van Neistat is goes with what's his he goes by the what is it? I'm just going to search Van Neistat. Spirited Man, right? So Van stuff is real weird in the best possible way. Like he does this really interesting stuff where he's like shooting these little videos. So he's also like lo-fi production, very, does like he's like a kind of like hates tech in the most fascinating way. And then he sort of builds out, he does like DIY projects and stuff, but he's got great cinematography. He's got a great instinct for making things interesting. And I've just always, I've just really enjoyed the way he makes it. What is this? He's like, it's too much. It's so fun. Anyways, so this is sort of where my heart's at is I want to get better at doing this sort of thing. But in order to do this sort of thing, you have to suck at it for a while, because the simplicity of what Van Neistat is doing here, what Risa is doing, like shooting, scenes around her apartment. It's hard to do good B-roll like that. It's hard to create a vibe. It's hard to come up with something that's so visually simple but visually impressive. And if I want to do that, I can't just study it and then be good at it. I have to study it and do it, and I'm going to look derivative for a while, and then I'm going to learn what's the kernel of this and what's my specific point of view on it, and then I'll be able to do something that feels mine, right? But there's no shortcut here. I just have to keep making the stuff. And so that's why I'm doing this challenge, is I have to basically force myself to be bad at the thing for a bit so that I can learn how to be good at it. So yes, very much deliberate practice in that sense. A lot of eyes on the X stream today. You know, it's interesting. The X stuff is seems to be blowing up because it looks like there's like 275, 277. There's a lot of people watching, right? And so, hello, thank you for coming wherever you're from. If you've never watched the show before, drop a comment and let me know what, like, I'll see which platform you're coming from, but let me know where you're watching from because I'm also always interested in that. It's all about the content, not the montage. Yes. You thought my video was him. Yeah, exactly. Like the Mark stuff, I think I took heavy inspiration from Mark. It was very, very good. Yeah, lots of love for Reese's stuff. And yeah, that's the thing, is it's like deceptively challenging because to get 15 good B-roll shots that are like a second and a half each, you got to set up 15 shots. So that 3 seconds of B-roll is suddenly, 25 minutes worth of work. But you get much better as you do more of it, right? And I imagine that dolly shot was probably like, it could have been something as simple as they put it on a rolling, any rolling rack in the house, and somebody just rolled it to the right. And all they had to get right was the timing, like move at the same speed as Risa so that as she goes through that doorway, you're going around the front of the island and you get this really cool shot, right? Like I think mechanically I understand how I could mimic it, and I don't need a dolly and I don't need anything expensive. Like, it doesn't matter if it makes a lot of noise because you're doing voiceover and music over it. You're not doing the room sound, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can pull this off that can be really low tech, not necessarily low effort. And I'll tell you, the one that really made me want to like fight everybody was the digital spaghetti. I watched this video here about how Gox, and if you haven't seen Gox's stuff, you should watch it. It's very looks super over the top. Like, Gox is absolutely ridiculous, but in the best possible way. And also, I don't know if Gox is the reason that everybody on YouTube has a specific, like every dude on YouTube talks a certain way. I don't know if it's because of Gox, but I think it might be, where every single sentence ends like this. And then I was in my car, right? Like every single YouTube video now that's narrated by a dude sounds like that. And I don't know if it was Gox, but he's one of the people who talks like that. But his cinematography is so out of control. Like, you see these just incredible shots here of like where, but here's the thing. He's not using expensive gear. He like wrapped paper around his light to make a spotlight. He put his camera on a skateboard. Like, it's just the most ridiculously low tech thing. And Gox is getting millions of viewers. He can definitely afford a spotlight or a real dolly, and he just doesn't, because he doesn't need to, right? And I think that to me is a very it's a very impressive like restraint to not overcomplicate it, even if you can afford it, right? And so that's a lesson for me, right? So here's a good point. I am good at live because I've been doing it since 2018 and I've got hundreds of reps. Like, I have done this so many times now, and I every single time have one thing that I take away that I'm going to improve next time. So that's, I think, what I'm capable of doing on a live stream like this might be the proof that the deliberate practice works, if that makes sense. So I want to prove that it'll work more than once, and I'm going to do this in a different format and see if I can get that same result of being very good at a different way of making videos through forcing myself to do it without resources, and just see how far that goes. Meets Wes Anderson. Oh man, I would love to do some Wes Anderson stuff. Thank you very much, Lewis. I really appreciate that. I've been meaning to reach out to you because I have a silly idea and I think you would like it. Yeah, a lot of people don't think about composition. I think composition is very hard because you know, when you look through a camera, you think it's just going to look like that, right? And that's what I see, and what I see looks cool, so I'm happy. But then if you move like this much down, the vibe changes. If you move up, the vibe changes, right? So you take a few steps back or forward, and you're really changing the whole way the shot feels, and that's an instinct I don't have. I right now, like, shooting is hard for me because I don't really know how to make it feel the way I want to make it feel. I've seen what other people do, and I like what they're doing. And I've watched a lot of videos on like how to do set dressing and how to create certain moods with your videos. And I like academically understand it, but I don't have an intuition for it. And that's a whole other reason to do this challenge for myself, is to force myself to develop that intuition through getting it wrong a bunch. Like, I hope when y'all watch this, you're watching going, that wasn't very good. And then you tell me about it so that I can go figure out why. Right? That's what I'm trying to do here is, you know, you wanna suck. You wanna figure out why you suck so that you can start to understand what's causing that and what are the steps that will take me to not sucking. And yeah, just try not to fear being bad, because being bad is part of the fun too. Like, you're gonna look back and remember how innocent you were when you thought you could get away with X, Y, or Z. And right now I have no inkling of what those things are. I've just been sort of putting off trying because of this fear of, well, what if I'm not good at it? And I have to flip that thought. I have to flip my expectation that I need to be good at things, and embrace that, like, part of the fun is being bad at it at first, and you know, being bad at it is how you become good at it. But yeah, lots of good stuff. Yeah, car mounts, like that Natalie Lynn stuff is so out of control. Like, I cannot believe how good she is. 21 years old, unbelievable. Like, 100% is going to be like, you know, somebody who makes it big in this space, because her natural, like, the work that she's put in and what she's able to produce at that small age is out of control. Like, I cannot believe how good her stuff is. I've never watched that bike lane one. I should watch that one. 1 hour top, shoot it all, then cut through the shot. That's actually a good idea. I like that. Yeah, low tech, not low quality. I think that is exactly the point. Coming in from India, what's up? Good to see you. Let's see. Yeah, put a ton of time into the video editing side of things. Spent a ton of money on the software. Yep. Yeah, and this is, I think, a huge problem for me too, is that I get so caught up in how I'm going to edit it or shoot it or make it look pro, that a lot of times my story isn't there. And you can see this if you go back through my catalog. If you watch some of my videos, my pre-shot videos, I'm close. Like, I have a good nugget of what I was trying to communicate, but the story itself doesn't quite get there. It's fine, right? And I think that it's a lot of it is because I do focus so much on, like, I want a cool shot, I want a great edit, I want this, you know, this montage feel or whatever it is. That all leads to me almost like backseating the story, which is, you know, yeah, got to invert that. And, like, story matters, and then you can shoot the whole story on an iPhone and you've got something great. If you don't do the story and you shoot a cinematic masterpiece, you end up with, like, a lot of sci-fi movies, honestly. Like, it's a lot of spectacle and no substance. Thank you very much, the Sober Coder. Appreciate you. So I think this is actually, I would push back on this. Like, I don't think you have a natural eye. I think that, all right, so I got into this argument the other day because somebody was saying that, you know, well, sometimes you're just, like, born with skills or preferences. And I don't know that I agree with that. I think that, okay, I'm gonna try to couch this in a way that doesn't turn it into like me making broad statements about the world. I'm gonna flip this around. I'm gonna talk about my experience of the world. I have found for me that I don't have like a passion, if that makes sense. Like a lot of times people will say like follow your passion, or do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, kind of thing. And what I've found for me is that there isn't like a thing that I love, and I don't have a passion. I also didn't really like a lot of the things that I do when I first started doing them. So my evolving theory is that passion is a thing you build through practice. The building of skill, the building of talent is something that turns into excitement about doing the thing. When I was first doing web dev, for example, I didn't like it. I just had to do it. My band needed a website. If we didn't have a website, nobody would go to our shows. Nobody could buy our merch. Like, there were a lot of reasons that we just didn't have a choice. And I didn't have anyone to ask, and I didn't have money to hire somebody. So it was, I could either figure this out or just admit defeat and let my band fail. And I wasn't willing to do that, so I did it anyways. And once I'd done it a few times, I started to see some of the ways that it could be fun, and that made it like interesting enough to keep chasing. And a few years in, I would say I was really passionate about it, but it didn't come from like an innate sense of like, this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. I built that passion through building a skill set. And I'm doing the same thing with video. When I first started shooting video, I didn't really care for it very much. I felt like it was a more complicated way to do what I could do in a blog post. And then I got a chance to work with some folks who were really good with video, and they involved me in some of theirs. And I started to see some of the differences and different ways that, video could reach somebody in a way that writing couldn't, and all those sorts of things. And that led to me wanting to give it a fair shot. So as I worked on Learn with Jason, which Learn with Jason wasn't like I have a passion for video. That was, I have a work problem I need to solve, and this seems to be the most effective way to solve it. So I made videos. And then as I was doing it, I learned more about gear. And as I learned more about gear, I realized it was fun. And then I learned how to, I started learning how to frame shots. I started learning how to do all these things. And that sort of turned into what you might call a passion for this, but what I just call like, I got good enough to have fun. And I think that's maybe the thing, is like a lot of times what we call passion is actually just, we got good enough to enjoy doing it, right? I think that when we're kids, it might seem like we have natural talent, but I think that we're reinforcement learners. Like by and large, we are reinforcement learners, and we have a tendency to be taught by people who are reinforcement teachers. So if you're a kid and you haven't learned anything yet, you don't have like, you're not born with a passion. Like no kid is coming out of the womb and immediately going like, yes, I'm going to be a mathematician. Like that's just not how it works, right? They get out into the world, they start experiencing the environment, and the environment gives them feedback. If they do a thing and they do well and they get praise and they feel satisfaction from that, they will do more of that thing. And early, I think it can be really subtle, but it starts to snowball into like, you are mathematical, you are visual, you are, clumsy, you are coordinated, whatever it is. Those things start to get built very young, and it's reinforcement. So we hear somebody say, I'm a toddler, and they say, oh, you're so clumsy. And then you hear that and you reinforce it, and you do it and you reinforce it. And eventually you just sort of become like, oh, I am that person. And it's the same thing if you're like, you start reading as a kid, like, oh, you've always loved books, and you go, I have always loved books. And it sort of becomes this thing, like I have a natural proclivity for books, right? But I don't think that's true. I think that we start to learn something, and as we do more of it, we gain skill at it, and that skill allows us to do the thing without a lot of effort, which lets us get maximum enjoyment out of that activity. Which is all to say, I think that I have had a lot of various like visual reinforcement. I did design and art when I was a kid. Everybody told me I was very creative, so I did more of it. I was in a band, so I did a lot of like musical stuff, thinking about how composition worked. And so all of that has sort of built this baseline skill set where I have an aesthetic skill set of like how to compose something, or sort of some instincts I've built around balance, or whatever. But I don't think, I don't know. I think I'm always wary about calling anything natural, right? I think there's this general idea that if you start to believe that there are innate qualities, then it's also a way to believe in innate inabilities. And that always bums me out when I hear somebody say like, I'm not the kind of person who could do X. And that's really too bad when I hear that sort of take, because I don't know. I think I'm reading this book right now called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and there's a quote that I really, really loved in there. I'm not going to be able to remember the quote exactly, but it's something to the effect of like, he believed two things to be true about the world. One is that all things are knowable by any person, and two is that anything broken can be fixed if you take the time to take it apart and figure out what's broken. And I really, that's something that I've believed for a long time, is that there's no innate gap between any person and knowledge. Like you can't, it's not like you can take somebody who doesn't feel like they're good at math and they'll just never learn math. Like they can decide they're not gonna learn math and they'll refuse to put the effort in or to try, but they're capable of it. And if they do put the effort in, they will learn math. And we hear those stories all the time where somebody says like, well, I always thought I couldn't learn X, but then something changed and I decided to do the work, and now I'm a world-class expert. And so that I think about a lot, because there are a lot of people in my life who have sort of talked to me about my own trajectory and said like, oh, it's so cool that you can do that. I'm not the kind of person who could do what you can do. And I feel like that's sort of minimizing in both ways, right? Like on the one hand, it really sucks for the person who believes that about themselves. Like, yes, you can do anything that I've done. None of the stuff that I've done is magic. I decided I was going to do it, and I sucked at it for a long time, but I kept doing it and I got better. Right. And that's every single aspect of my life. And it also kind of sucks when somebody like diminishes your work by saying like you're a natural. Like, oh, well, sure, but like I did a lot of work. Like I get where you're coming from, and I do appreciate it, and I don't dislike the idea of saying that somebody is like, wow, you just picked this up so fast. Like that is great, but I don't like the idea that it's, well, it was preordained. Like nothing you could have done would have affected this outcome because you were destined to be great at this. I don't believe that at all. Like you got to do the work, and if you're lucky, you'll have built enough overlapping skills in other areas that it's faster for you to learn a new thing. I think that's one of the big reasons I get so excited about learning, is that if you build enough skills, and those skills are varied enough, you kind of build this pad of experience that'll translate into the basis of just about anything else, so that suddenly you're fast at learning almost everything. And it starts to feel like people will look at you like, wow, you can do anything, and you start to feel like you can do anything. And that's true because you did all this work to learn all these baseline skills across a huge foundation that basically mean anywhere you want to go, you're okay, you can do it because you've got something that's sort of related to that experience. So anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you, Jason. I was just, apparently that's a button for me. Definitely DIY. Yeah. All sorts of good DIY. And yeah, that's sort of the thing, is like, if you look back in 2018 and watch some of my early videos, you're going to see how far this stream, how far I have come just in my own capabilities, how far the quality of things has come. It's a slow process. Like it took me 5-6 years to get here, and in another 5-6 years, I'm really excited to see where I can get if I keep doing the work. Hell yeah, Selma. What'd you make? And then you got into a color grading rabbit hole. Color grading is also my Achilles heel. I'm very bad at it. And I don't even have a framework for how it's supposed to work. So I watch a YouTube video, but the YouTube video is of like somebody in a, like a parking garage video, and it's like cool lighting. And I'm like, sitting in my natural light, like, all right, make me not look green. And then, so I'm just like, well, let's see what happens. What's up, Prabhav? How you doing? Deep diving this Monday. Hell yeah. So good they can't ignore you. Yeah, I think Cal Newport, I think a lot of this stuff does sort of boil down to the same general core of like, if you put in the work and you show your work, it's really difficult to not succeed. Like that's kind of it, right? Like it's boring and it takes a long time, but that's unfortunately that's the truth. There are no shortcuts. Like there's a lot of luck in terms of how many opportunities you get, but it's still just doing the work. Yeah, shoot darker and check your white balance. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know this stuff yet. I love that. I think that's such a good way of like thinking about this, because it really does make such a huge difference if you all right, let's take a little linguistic rabbit hole, right? Because I think some of this is just in like the way that we talk to ourselves. And I think about like how we talk about who and what we are, and how that shift can really change just our general outlook and stuff. I think that if you are in a situation and something goes wrong and you say, I'm such an idiot, that's very different from saying like, oh man, I screwed that. Like I screwed that up. Oh, what a mistake, right? Because one of them is a temporary state of being. I made a mistake. And one of them is a permanent statement of what you are. I'm such an idiot. Those two things really drive very different internal narratives. And I think that, this idea of, or like even stuff like I'm angry as opposed to I'm feeling angry. Like, when you have a feeling, you are not your emotions. You just experience them temporarily, right? Like they arrive in response to outside stimulus. You feel them, and then they go away, and they always go away. You can't hold on to any feeling forever. And so the narrative of saying that you are something can start to turn into like, instead of saying like I'm angry, it starts to become I'm an angry person, which starts to I don't know, it can like warp you in weird ways. And I think that being mindful of like how we talk about ourselves and how we communicate to ourselves about ourselves is really important. And also how we communicate to other people. Like if you're in a room and somebody makes a mistake, can you communicate about the mistake as the temporary thing that it is, and not the person as the as the whole person, so that the conversation is about acknowledging the mistake and improving, as opposed to saying like, well, you're damaged forever. Like, I think those are really tricky things. Yeah, fixed and growth mindset, I think is that Brene Brown? If it's not Brene Brown, you should still read Brene Brown because she's brilliant. But there's basically an idea that like you can say that you are something, but that starts to paint a box around you, and you just get stuck in this mindset of like, well, I am this, and that's all I can be. Carol Dweck, yes. I feel like that this has been something that was really hard for me, because I spent a long time, I was like one of the not like a full-blown gifted kid, but like the same general idea of like people always tell you that you're smart and you're so capable and whatever, and then that starts to become an identity that you don't want to violate. Like if you've always been told you're smart, the idea of doing something that would make you look not smart is really daunting. Like, you don't want to disappoint all those people who believed this thing to be true about you. But what that, and like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it also is the sort of thing that prevents me from like making videos, right? I don't want to look bad at things. And so I resist it. I try to get more gear, I watch more tutorials. I watch more movies for inspiration, and I don't make anything because I feel like if I get enough information, then the first thing I make will be brilliant. And then I'll live up to that expectation that I am, I am smart, I am brilliant, I am capable. But if I can embrace the idea that instead of it being what I am, that the brilliance or smartness or whatever of any given activity is the product of how much work went into it, not necessarily who did the work, that I think then starts to change my narrative, because I'm not saying everything I do is going to be good and that I am always smart and I am always capable. In fact, a lot of times I am very much not smart because I've never done the thing before. I am very much not capable because I'm trying it for the first time. And that's good. I can embrace that if I stop making it about who I am and more about what I want to accomplish in the task itself. I can lean into this work and say, I'm doing this poorly because I want to do it well, right? The unknown is also a really good one. Yeah. So this is actually really challenging. I get frozen up on this too when there's something I've never tried before, and I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. Like, it's not that I don't want to do the thing. It's that I'm not sure what the thing is, right? So I spend a lot of time trying to understand, like, is my resistance to this that I am worried I'm going to be bad because I've talked about that and I can push through that, right? Or is it that I'm not even sure where to start, or is it something else? And I'll try to, like, if I feel stuck, I try to brain dump to get to the point where I have a little better understanding of, at least not necessarily how to start, but like why I'm worried about starting. Because if I can't demystify the act itself, I can try to demystify the next best thing, which are my feelings about the act. And if I can understand, is it because I'm scared I'm going to do a bad job? That's fine. That's what practice is for. Is it because I literally don't know what to do next? Okay, now I've got a different problem, because if I want to do something, like if I wanted to become a chemist and I wanted to work on, I don't know, like material sciences to develop some way to use biodegradable plastic. Great thing. I'd love to do that. I have literally zero idea how I would start. Like, I don't know what equipment you would need. I don't know what the regulations are. I don't know about safety. I don't know what makes something biodegradable. Like, I have such a huge knowledge and skill gap here that I would be completely frozen. And so I have to then break that down and figure out, okay, well, if I can't just do that, what do I want to do? What do I would need to do first, right? And so there's books I could read. I could go back to college. I could do whatever. I can go and take some step that's toward the thing that I want to do. But if I never do the work to understand, like, well, why am I not doing that thing? It's so important to me to make biodegradable plastic. Like, this is my legacy work. I know it's what I want to do, and I'm just not doing it. It's not, without that examination of what's blocking me, I might never actually take the first step, because I would just think, well, maybe it's just not in the cards for me, right? Like, if I really cared, I would do it. But it's rarely that. It's if it's important to you and you find yourself thinking about it, there's probably a blocker that's not your caring. It's probably something else. And a lot of times it comes down to either you fear being bad at it, which I think is the majority of it for me, or you quite literally don't have a first step. And in the absence of a first step, it kind of doesn't matter how motivated you are. You don't have a thing to do. Like, there is no plan. But that is challenging. Breaking Bad taught me all I need to know about being a chemist. Yeah, the jumping off a cliff thing is I think a good analogy because it always feels like when I remember when I was a kid, I I was trying to go off the high dive. I don't know, I was probably 5, 6 years old, something like that. I'd never done it before, and it's pretty high. I think it was probably 15 feet or so, and it was scary. And I remember I'd get up there and I'd walk down to the edge and I'd like stare down and I'd panic and then I'd like run back and there's a line forming and and I think I gave up like 4 or 5 times. And then the way I finally decided to do it was I think my dad just wouldn't let me not do it. He like stood at the end of the diving board. He was like, "You're up here, there's a line, you got to go. Like there's no way off." And I did it. And as soon as I did it, I was like, I couldn't stop doing it. I was like a little merry-go-round, like jump, run, jump, run, jump. Like I couldn't stop. And it was this sort of realization, not some, 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 not. Eh? Are we back? Maybe we're back? Oh boy. All right, well, that was fun. Really glad that happened. Jeez. Okay. Um, it is a learning experience. Okay. All right, we're back. We're back. Okay, cool. I don't know what did I'm seeing the not some eat a not some joke. What did I do? No, it wasn't the so okay, something weird is happening. It happens very rarely, but it's happened enough now that I think I know what's going on. I have my camera, my mic, and a few other peripherals running into this USB hub, and sometimes it just like stops sending the data into the computer because I run all of it in through one cable into this MacBook Pro. And when that happens, I just have to like unplug the USB hub and then plug it back in after a second and it comes back. But I don't know why. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Could be, let me see. Is it hot? No, it doesn't feel hot enough to overheat. But yeah, we'll have to check. I don't know. It could be bandwidth. It's also this computer's getting old. Like this is let's see, what year is this? This is a 2021 Apple M1 Max with 64 gigs of memory. So I would say it certainly shouldn't be having a problem, but that doesn't mean it's not having a problem. I hope my USB hub's not failing, but it definitely could be. This is a CalDigit something something. I don't know if you've got a USB-C hub that you like that isn't garbage, because I don't think this one's garbage. It's been a real workhorse for a long time, but I've purchased several and they were hot trash. And I would love to find one that's not bad. Could I plug in too? Yeah, probably. Anyways, what were we talking about? I see. This is the problem with gear, is it just gets in the way. Like if we were doing this on my MacBook's built-in camera, I would look like a potato, but we wouldn't have lost our train of thought. A wavelength? Oh, right, the unknown and diving off a. What is the? I don't know. What is the meaning of a not some? I truly don't know what snippet of conversation that was that looped. So is it true though? I thought the left and right side were on a different bus. So if I had one going in left and one going in right, theoretically they would be on two separate buses, I think. I remember I looked this up once, but who knows? Yeah, left and right are different. Yeah. So if this continues to be an issue, and I do think that it's because of the USB traffic, which the fact that this has worked for years leads me to believe that it's probably not the USB hub like overloading the bus. My guess is it's probably something else. What? Public transport rules, VDog. How dare you? Okay. I had the same experience of those rides at Six Flags. Yeah, those ones were also like, I don't know. There's something special about like when you realize that the thing you thought, like, because I think I was very convinced that when I jumped off the high dive, or later when I did my first cliff dive, or got on a ride like this where it just drops you, for 100 feet. I was convinced that it was going to kill me. And like not rationally, like I knew logically that it wouldn't hurt me, but I had this irrational fear that if I jumped, that was it, like curtains, and when you do the thing and you realize that limitation was only imaginary, there's something really thrilling about that. And I can see how somebody becomes an adrenaline junkie. Like I won't become an adrenaline junkie because at the end of the day, I have way too many, I think, rational fears. But I can see where it comes from. This idea of like sort of overcoming that imaginary fear and being able to embrace the fun of doing something that seems really scary but actually isn't. The thrill comes from wanting to do it and overcoming the fear. Exactly. Heights kind of make my body lock up too these days. I don't do rides anymore at all. When I was in my early 20s, I think, I went to a county fair with my family, and my brother and sister are younger than me, and they were really excited to like go on the roller coaster and the Gravitron and stuff like that. And I got on the one, I think it's called the Gravitron, where it sort of looks like a top, and you go inside and you like lay against this like padded board, and then it spins so fast that it like goes up on the rails. I think that one's called the Gravitron. I thought I was gonna die, like not from fear, but from all the different parts of my body moving in the wrong direction. It was like I got off that thing and I was so sick. I had to just like sit on a bench for like an hour. It was rough. It was really rough. And I haven't really done rides since then. That's it. That's correct. That was it. My soul exited my body through the Gravitron, and I have been haunting this world ever since. Oh, intent of went on a tree adventure park. Willpower lost against reptile brain in the middle of a tightrope. Oh no! Oh geez, what happened? Did they have to like come and get you? Oh geez, that's got to be the worst too, because then it's like self-reinforcing. It's like you get stuck, and then you're stuck in the worst possible place. Oh geez, haunting with Jason, indeed. Exactly. Oh, did you know this is it the 20-year anniversary of transatlanticism? Transatlanticism and the Postal Service give up are the same age, and I believe it's the 20th anniversary of those albums dropping, which, like, I'm a desiccated corpse when I think about that. But they're going on tour, so there's a Postal Service and Death Cab for Cutie tour where you can watch both of those albums get performed in entirety as part of the thing. I'm very, very, very excited. 311 did a Tiny Desk. That's incredible. Jeez. Yeah, oh man, that I am sorry that happened. That must have sucked a lot. I haven't seen the 311. I was just watching on the weekend on Sunday. My brother came over and he's got the Oculus headset thing, and he set it up so that we could watch the game on our TV while the person was playing with the headset. And so we played like Beat Saber, and then there was another one called Pistol Whip, which is like it's sort of like the standard rail shooter where you like go through a set field and people pop out and you're supposed to shoot at them. But what was cool about it is it's a very like VR glitchy kind of thing, and it's all set to music, so you actually get bonus points if you're like shooting on beat. So it was a very like musical evening, right? So we're playing Beat Saber, which beats. I mean, I'd never played Beat Saber before. That is really fun and really hard. Like I was getting rolled on normal difficulty. Like we didn't even get to the point where I could turn it on to hard mode. That is challenging. And then Pistol Whip was really fun, kind of, silly, goofy, whatever. But then when the battery on the thing died, we switched over to putting on different music videos and like live performances and stuff. And so we got down a like Scary Pockets, if you've ever seen them on YouTube, is wonderful. They do like kind of funky covers of different things. I've shared on the Learn with Jason Discord. There is a video that I shared like in the last few days of Scary Pockets covering Daft Punk, and it's so good. Like they play it on a rooftop. It's so cool. Scary Pockets is also the Jack Conte, who's the co-founder of Patreon. He's the keyboardist in the band, so like I think they have more resources than most bands do, so they get to do some really cool stuff. It's very, very fun to watch. But yeah, that is definitely good. Did the booze car on the high roller in Vegas? Hold up, what is the high roller? Whoa. How tall is this? 550 feet. Dang! That's a lot. That's cool. Yeah, that's a little out of control. What's up, Nate? Good to see you. Live Beat Saber would be really fun, actually. That would be a fun thing to do at an event, like have it kind of set up and live streamed and everything, but like challenge people to Beat Saber. I think that could be really fun. Have to figure out how to do the DMCA stuff though, because all that music is copyrighted. Well, I haven't seen this yet. Very, very interested in that. Live works too. All right, I'm in. Harris Heller? I'm going to have to look that up later because I don't want to get a takedown. All right. We're an hour in. We've gone real philosophical, way faster than I expected, and we broke my computer. So good for us, chat. We're doing great. Oh, he does the stream beats music. Okay, I got you. Just do. That was not the button I meant to push. Jeez. I swear I know how these buttons work. So, okay. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to know how, like, a lot of people responded to this do it anyways challenge that I'm putting up there. I will see if I can find my own post here. Nope, that's the live. That's Mark. Here. So this got a really strong response. People were clearly like they were feeling it, right? And I think it struck home for a lot of folks. A lot of people responded specifically to say, like, this is what they needed to see. And I heard a few of y'all say the same thing in the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about, like, how do we turn that feeling into action, right? Because I feel like I watch a lot of stuff that is motivational. Like, I've been watching Mark's stuff for months now, and a lot of times he'll say something and I'm like, dang, that got me right in the feels. And I don't do anything. Like, nothing changes, right? So for anybody who is kind of talking about this stuff and feeling like this is something that, all right, I got to do this too, I'm feeling inspired. Like, how do we turn this into action? How do we turn this into results, right? Like, I guess, are any of y'all interested in doing this with me, right? Do you want to do this challenge with me? And if so, how do we want to make it work? Like, I've got the Discord. We can post stuff on Twitter. We can do I don't know. You tell me. But I'm very interested in trying to find a way to just kind of create a group of accountability buddies, right? Like, I think something that I've wanted for a really long time, and I've overcomplicated in my head. Like, I've wanted a group of people that I'm just making stuff with, right? It was one of my favorite things of all time when I worked at Netlify, is I was on a team with Cassidy Williams and Tara Minixick and Ben Hong and, Phil Hawksworth and Sarah Drasner. Like, these are some of the most creative people I know. And we were all just sort of crammed into a space together and told to be creative, right? And that sort of feeling is really hard to come by when you're not in an employment situation, or if you're not like I think there's a reason all the YouTube kids moved to YouTube, or sorry, there's a reason all the YouTuber kids moved to New York. And it's because it gives them the ability to, like, be around a bunch of other YouTube kids who are living in New York, right? I think it's why people move to San Francisco for tech. It's why people move to Tahoe or whatever if they want to get into the snowboarding scene. I think it's like, if you can get to a place where a bunch of people are doing the thing that you want to do, you can create communities around doing that thing. And I want that same thing to exist. And, selfishly, I want it to be in Portland, where I can just hang out with folks who are doing cool stuff, and we all just kind of show each other the cool stuff we're working on and help each other with camera angles and stuff. Because we looked at that Risa video. Somebody was operating that dolly, right? So I don't necessarily want to have to grab Marissa and be like, hey, will you come do this camera thing? And she's like, I hate it when you make me do camera stuff. It'd be way more fun if there was somebody who was stoked about this stuff, and I'm going to help them with some of their angles, and they'll help me with mine, and then we're sort of making stuff together, as opposed to me trying to make stuff and inconveniencing all the people around me who don't care. But in the absence of doing it in person, because I think in person is a little ambitious, it's, people live where they live, and it's not practical to expect people to move, I tried. I texted Chan and I said, hey, you need to move to Portland. I know you got kids, but tell them that you're moving here for YouTube points and they'll understand. And for some reason he didn't do it. I don't get it. Yes, I mean, accountability buddies, that's exactly what we need, right? So we need stated goals and what we're going to do to work toward them, right? And I think that's, so in my case, my stated goal is I'm going to make a video every day or every weekday for at least the next 2 weeks. And if it doesn't feel like it's killing me, I'm going to try to keep that going for as long as I can. And I've got stuff, I've got some travel coming up. I'm going to be at City JS in London which if you are in the UK area, that's going to be a fun one. There's going to be some really good people there. No, this one. So this one's going to be a lot of fun if you want to check that out. But so I'll be here. So from the 3rd to 5th of April, actually from like the 1st to 8th or something like that, I'll be in London, and I'm going to see if I can make videos while I'm there. Like, again, constraints and recognizing that like I can be creative in any scenario. I just have to choose to make the time to do it. And if that's the case, you know, I need to ship these every day. I'm going to be putting them on Twitter and also onto my playlist, which I'll drop another link to this playlist in case anybody wants to follow along there. This, yes, 1000% yes. The goals have to be things you can control, right? Like setting a goal that is, I'm going to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's not a goal. Because you don't have any agency over that. Like, you can't make somebody subscribe to your channel. The only things you can control are the things you can do. So if your goal, if the metric you're shooting for is 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, your goals, your action steps should be things like, I'm going to publish, you know, twice a week, or I'm going to do one well-researched video every 2 weeks, and you know, use the feedback from that to make the next one better, so that I, you know, eventually get to 1,000, which is the signal that what I'm doing is working. Making sure that you actually can affect the outcome. Like if you set a goal and then it's like, all right, how are you going to get there? And your answer is like, I don't know. That's a bad goal. You need a goal where there's a very clear path. Like, I will publish a video every day. I know exactly how I'm going to do that. If you told me, if my goal was I'm going to get 50,000 views on a video, like, I can try, you know, and maybe one of the things I do will get there, but I can't control that. So even if I did a great job, I would still potentially end up being super bummed because I'd created something that I should have been proud of, but it didn't get the arbitrary thing that I couldn't control. So very, very, very good point, Bridgewater. Thank you, Akan. I appreciate that a lot. I think it is definitely important to think about what language means, right? And to choose words that hopefully make people feel better. You know, I don't know. I feel like we spend a lot of time being. It is very easy to be angry, and it's very easy to be sad, because there's always something to be angry or sad about. But there are also always things to be like hopeful about, even in the worst scenarios, right? And I think the problem that I'm seeing is that we get so overloaded with the unpleasant stuff, like the fear, the anger, the outrage, the sadness, that it can make it feel like it's not worth doing anything. You know, I think like Marissa, my wife, does this climate change newsletter, and the vast majority of news about climate change is just so depressing. You know, it's not even like it doesn't even come with action steps. It's just like, we've crossed the threshold, we're all gonna die. And it's like, well, okay, what do I do? You know, what are my options here, right? And then the other options, the options that you get are people like guilting you, like, stop using straws, you monster. And that also doesn't feel good. So you're kind of left in this situation where it sucks to try, feels bad to try, it feels bad to exist, and you just don't. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's just done then. We just, you know, like, we're past that point. I guess we move on and just live in our desert hellscape in 50 years. But that's not actually the case. There's hopeful news, there's hopeful things to focus on, and that's what Marissa publishes, is like, there's innovation happening. There's research being published that actually shows a glimmer of hope. And if we focused on that, if we centered the stuff that we can control, then it feels a little less bleak, right? And I think that's true about anything. If we're looking at the state of politics, like, yeah, it can be pretty bleak. Like, there's a lot of terrible stuff going on out there. And we have some agency. Like we can do little stuff like voting. You should go vote. But we can also do stuff like how we communicate, what we engage with, what we platform, who we give a megaphone to. And if we focus more on platforming and giving megaphones to people who are inspiring and encouraging us to be happy and hopeful, it shifts the whole mood, right? Like I think we sort of go through these periods of everything seems good, everything seems bad. And I think a lot of that is driven by what we consume, because things are always simultaneously good and bad. Like if you look for bad news, you'll find it. If you look for good news, you'll find it. And if we choose to exclusively focus on one or the other, that can be detrimental. But it can be especially detrimental if we decide that no good news matters because there's too much bad news. I think that can really like hollow us out and make us really sad. So I think a lot about how to try to just keep focused on the things that are good and that help. And my core belief in this is that if we focus on things we have agency over, like learning and growth, we can find ways to do it that are fun. We can we can play to learn. We can play to collaborate, and that all has good benefits. Like tech specifically. Let's talk about tech specifically. I feel like a lot of what is out there is saying, if you don't learn this, you'll be irrelevant. If you don't do this, you'll be unemployed. If you don't do this, you'll never get a job, right? Like there's this sort of like fear take and this sense of urgency that like, you've got to learn everything right now or else you're totally hosed. But if we flip that just a little bit and instead we say, the more you learn, the more resilient you are, right? And if we play, it's easier to learn. If you are doing something that you're enjoying and it's, a game for you, it's something that makes you smile, something that makes you laugh, you're still learning a hard skill. Like if you go out to make something that uses WebSockets to like troll your friends you can open up a tab on their computer and play fart sounds whenever they walk by. That's funny. It's funny. It's fun. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to be something that you're going to want to share with people. But you still learned how to do WebSockets in real time and like multimodal interactions. That's really cool. And that's really useful. And that will serve you for a long time. And if the alternative is somebody says, if you don't learn how WebSockets work, you're going to be irrelevant as a developer in 5 years. Like that's a bummer. And now you're learning out of fear, and it's not fun to learn when you feel like you're just kind of trudging through the motions because you don't want to lose your job. Like that doesn't motivate people. It's it is easier to learn when you're enjoying things. Like there's just research on that. Like we just know that's true. You retain information better if you learn it through play. And if you can learn better through play and your quality of life goes up through play, why not? Like, why not make that a core tenet? Why not make that the way that we approach this? And for me, I have a lot more fun when I'm just goofing around with friends. And all the stuff that I'm doing is hard tech. Like, I'm not like goofing around with stuff that doesn't have value. The stuff I'm building, I turn around and build this for clients, and it makes me a lot of money. But it's still a chance to goof off and a chance to make myself laugh, try to make y'all laugh. So I think that to me is a big. It's a hard choice sometimes because it's really easy to get depressed because there's so much terrible stuff out there, and there's so many things to learn that it can feel really overwhelming, and there's so much bad news that it can just feel hopeless and bleak. But again, that you can only set goals for what you can control, and if it's important to you. Like if you're going to keep existing, it's not, I don't know, it should be like, you might as well try to enjoy it. Like, yes, bad things exist and we should do our best to correct those things. But like, if because bad things exist, we don't allow good things to exist, we're kind of making things worse, right? So I think we have to arc toward the playful and the fun and the hopeful, because that's going to be the thing that turns us around, right? Like if we want this industry to be welcoming and joyful and playful again, and we don't want it to feel like a barren hellscape of nobody can get a job and everybody's afraid and the robots are coming for us or whatever it is that we want to worry about. Like both of those scenarios can exist today, right? It just depends on which one we choose to focus on. And I choose to focus on the fun one, because if the robots are coming for my job, I can play around with ways to learn how the robots interact with stuff, and I can learn more about that. And if I'm having fun with it, I'm going to retain it better, and I'm going to be in a better position to use that knowledge and to pivot as an engineer into whatever comes next. And I don't think I'll ever have to feel sad about that. I won't be dragged kicking and screaming into the next paradigm. I'll just kind of goof around and be ready when it happens, if it happens. I don't know. I think that's a lot. Yeah, exactly. Like you shouldn't ignore bad things. Like you never want to ignore things, because that also is a little like, the ostrich head in the sand thing. Like when somebody says like, well, I don't do politics. Like, well, yeah, you do. You just do them poorly because you're not actively participating. Like everything is political. That's what choices are, right? Like you're moving something towards something or something else. But if we let it make us sour, if we let it make us bitter, it doesn't make the world a better place, right? Like, anyways, we should not ignore the bad things that are out there. We don't have to invite them all in. Holy shit, what a quote. Yeah, love that quote. Like, I'm just going to repeat that because that's so good. While we should not ignore the bad things that are out there, we also don't have to invite them all in. Such a good quote. Resilience is more important than intelligence. I think that's true, because I think that intelligence is made out of resilience. Like if you think about what the substructure of anything is, resilience is really like the matter that the rest of our skills are built on, because the only way that we build skills is through sticking to it and trying and learning and evolving, right? So if without resilience, it's hard for us to build any skill. If we just feel, if we feel like any defeat is the end, how smart can we get if the first time we get a question wrong, we stop? It's very, very limiting. And I think that, so yes, I think this is 100% accurate. Like resilience is one of the most critical things. Am I still pixelating? Oh boy, what an exciting day. Oh dang, we just crossed 500, y'all. What is happening? Hello, where is everybody watching from? Like I can't see, it's hard for me to tell where everybody's coming in from, because it doesn't show me like a breakdown of numbers. It just shows me like aggregate. Always Twitch. And also it's annoying that it doesn't like give you any breakdown at all. Oh, it does if I hover over it. Everybody's on X. All right then, what's up, Twitter? Interesting. That is fascinating. Everybody's watching on Twitter and nobody's talking on Twitter. That's also interesting. I wonder if this is like other Twitter things where they over report. Like if somebody scrolled past the video, they count it as a watcher. Like that probably doesn't. That wouldn't surprise me. We got Ireland. What's up, Liam? We got Istanbul, Romania, England, we are, oh, Argentina, we are all over the place. What up, y'all? Yes, prioritizing positivity does not require avoiding or denying negative feelings or the situations that cause them. 1000% yes. Like we can acknowledge and attempt to correct the things that we see that are wrong around us without letting them make us sad too, right? Like I think I think for me at least a lot of it is recognizing that like sometimes the cure for some, not all, but some bad situations, the cure is just refusing to let it bring you down, right? Like I think about if you have, if you've got a group of friends, right, and the mood turns and you get into a heavy topic, if you just sit there, it can just kind of kill the whole vibe, right? And then nobody really wants to continue, and the party kind of breaks up, right? You lose the group because everybody's kind of in their heads now, and they're like, I don't know, I don't really feel like partying anymore. But if you shift it back around and you reintroduce some positivity, or you crack the right joke or whatever it is, it doesn't diminish the negative things that you were talking about, but it reminds everybody that there's more to life than just being sad about things that you can't control. There's nothing that we can do in the macro sense about a lot of the things that are happening. So we can take the actions we can take, and then we can try not to let it ruin our lives, because it, the only option we have is, the only control we have is like our specific scenario. And in my mind, if I'm doing the best I can to help other people and to try to make things better, my motto is leave it better than you found it these days. And you can do that without being racked with guilt or sad or bitter, right? And I think I do think that's really important. Yeah, you need to do self-care first if you want to be able to help those around us. Yeah, like I think that's sort of like the people that are almost like trying to cover up their own pain by helping other people in a way that suddenly becomes like disingenuous or whatever. Like I saw this video that really bummed me out, where it was like they'd very clearly staged this photo shoot so a guy could like let a starving kid drink water out of his cupped hands, and it's like, why couldn't you get that kid a cup? Why couldn't you, like there were so many ways that you could have done this that wouldn't have like demeaned that kid so that you could feel like you were doing something good, right? Like, and also, did it need to be a photo shoot at all? Like, do you need to show that you're helping, or can you just help, right? Like it sort of warps things if you let the motivation for helping somebody else be to try to like fix something broken inside of you, right? Like you gotta fix yourself so that you can do something. You have to be able to do these things without expectation of return, because how do I want to say this? Because I don't know. I don't want to get into proclamations because I don't want to tell you your business, but I think like, for me at least, whenever I have done something strictly from the motivation of getting some kind of a payback, I, one, didn't enjoy it, and two, was almost always disappointed with the results, right? And because I would like, oh well, I'm gonna do something nice for this person because they've got this connection and I want them to introduce me so that I can get a better job, right? So I tried to like manipulate my way into getting into this situation so that I could do something that was ostensibly nice for this person, but ultimately I was trying to get them to owe me a favor. And they can, like, people can smell that a mile away. Like if it's like that old scam where they would find you in, I can't remember who it was, but it was like one particular group would like show up and they'd hand you a flower, and they would hand you a flower to trigger the reciprocity instinct in your brain, so that you accept the flower, and then they say, in exchange, would you give me, a small donation? And you feel this tremendous guilt because you accepted the flower, and now you've got to reciprocate, or else you're a bad person, right? And they know that, and that's why they do it. And so, don't be like that. Like, don't give something because you believe that you should get something back. You have to give something because it feels good to give it. And giving something because the act of giving makes you feel better, as unintuitive as it sounds, is going to get you far better results than trying to do things in a way that forces results. Like when I started doing things, like sometimes I'll think about somebody and I'll just like send them a little thing, or I'll drop them a note, or I'll recommend somebody for a speaking gig or whatever. And I'm not doing that because I want them to owe me. I'm doing it because I genuinely like that person. I genuinely want to see that person succeed. And the I guess irony of it, maybe, if you're thinking about it from like a utilitarian standpoint, is that when I've done things without motivation, like, well, with the motivation of wanting to help somebody because I like them and I want to see them succeed, they end up succeeding, and they end up in these positions of authority and power. And then they remember that I was the one who helped them without expecting anything in return. And they're far more likely to like recommend me for a thing when the time is right for them to need someone like me, right? And so, like, I don't expect a return, but I also know that when you put it out, it's the pay it forward idea. Like you do things because it's good to do good things, and that builds a reputation of being someone who does good things without immediately showing up and saying like, hey, remember I did that thing for you? Do something for me now. If you develop a reputation as somebody who just does things because they're the right things to do, and you of course you're ready if somebody wants to like reciprocate, but like it's never expected, it's never demanded. Suddenly people are much more willing to reciprocate. People I've never met, because they've heard about me through the Whisper network, will come and offer me things that I never would have expected, because somebody I know was willing to say a nice thing about me, right? It is such a it's maybe really counterintuitive if you've never done it before. I know it was really hard for me at first to think about like just forgetting motivations at all and trying to switch it around to just like, I don't know, I'm just going to do something nice because it's nice to be nice, right? And my sense of happiness and well-being has gone through the roof because I never feel like I'm being screwed, right? Like I feel like a lot of times when I was younger, I would do stuff and it was always with the expectation of reciprocation. And so I would sort of like unsolicited do something nice for somebody to try to get them to owe me a favor. And then if they didn't do that favor, I was bitter about it. I was resentful that, oh, like, well, I did this stuff for them and they're not paying me back. Well, who cares, right? I was so mad about things, like I had manufactured reasons to be angry. And as soon as I gave up on that, and I gave up on that through a course of very painful years where I was trying to teach myself to be less of a miserable sack of shit. And when I got through the other side of that transition, my whole world changed because I just was like, just kind of happy. Like it was okay. I like, hey, things are fine. Things are going to continue to be okay. And like, there'll be bad days, actually not even bad days. There's this quote, Dana Lawson is the CTO at Netlify. And she said this thing on a meeting. I don't know if it's hers or somebody else's, but I've never forgotten it, where she said, we don't have bad days. We have bad moments. And what a change that makes, right? Because it's like you can sit with something and you can feel bad about it, but it doesn't have to control everything. And, when something goes wrong, when something takes a turn, it's just like, okay, all right, I'm having a bad moment. Like I'm angry. I'm going to sit with this. No, I'm not angry. I'm feeling anger. I'm going to sit with this for a second. I'm going to try to understand where it came from. I'm going to see if there's anything I can control about it. And then I'm going to just let it go. And once it's done, I don't have to remember that because I was angry an hour ago, the whole rest of my day needs to be bad. I can just be angry. I can go have a good cry in the bathroom and I can come back out and I can decide it doesn't have to ruin my day. Like the next thing I do can be better. And it really, it's a hard shift, but it made a big difference. What's cooking? Um, your Twitch input is suddenly left or right. Oh no. um, what's up, Sammy Whoosh? Sammy Whoosh? I like whoosh is good you can't say that without an inflection. Like it's gonna whoosh. Yeah, our goal should be what we can control and not the result. And I think that, yes, it just comes down to goal setting in general. Like we have to recognize that like the only autonomy we really get is over ourselves. And so we have to use the agency we have and not be angry or sad about the agency we don't have. I can't make you do anything. All I can do is do what I can do and hope that the example I set, that the actions that I take, that the way that I choose to exist in the world is going to attract people to me that value that and who want to keep people like me around. You know, that's my goal is I want to be somebody that I like and that I hope other people like enough that they want to keep me around and involve me in stuff. That's all I can control. You know, anything else is you know, I can manufacture a little luck by trying to make sure I'm in the right rooms to meet people and to make new friends, but I can't control the outcomes. And every time I've tried, it's gone poorly. I've made the joke that I can't introduce myself. Like I have to be introduced, if that makes sense. When I was younger, I remember my friends and I were all dating and we would kind of talk about different ways that we were, like if you're meeting somebody, you know, because this was in the very, very early days of dating sites was when I was doing this. And so most of what we did was we would like go out to a bar or something and you had to like approach somebody. And I learned very quickly that if I tried to approach somebody, it never went well. Like, I don't know why. Something about me just reeks of desperation when I'm like, hello, I'm Jason. Would you like to hang out? But that's never really changed. Like I have a really hard time when I meet somebody for the first time. If I'm introducing myself, there's gonna be this weird period of awkwardness where I don't know what my hello energy is, but it's weird. Whereas if somebody introduces me, like if somebody says, this is my friend Jason, the only difference, that's literally the only difference. And it's the entire energy is different. I don't know why. But it's something that I've learned about myself and something really interesting that I don't have a good explanation for, but who knows? I could probably read some books on it and get better. But you know, maybe that's my problem. You can't. Easy to be happy when you have an impeccable beard. Thank you, Austin. Yeah. What are we doing? Just scanning. Approach somebody. I'm a millennial. I'm a millennial too. I am. I think that was actually another whole thing is, like, I don't know. I don't know if this is something that I aged into or if my philosophy has just changed, but I'm so much bigger on calls now. It's kind of nice to be able to solve a problem in 30 seconds on a phone call versus like 2.5 hours of text messages. Or like the same with meetings. Like I'd far prefer a 30-minute phone call over 4 days of emails. Or like Slack messages, you know, it's so much, like, let me rephrase. In planning phases, when anything is like ideas based, it just works so much better if you can be sync. I don't know. I think like in my perfect world where teleportation exists and everybody can live wherever they want, but we can still go to the office. My perfect world would be that there was like 1 day a week of people coming into the office largely just to like hang out and go to lunch together. But then when we got into planning phases, like, you know, quarterly planning or whatever, we would do that week in the office and actually be together talking live around a whiteboard, you know, really like I haven't found a way to replace this remotely, but the experience of an in-person idea session, there's energy there that I've never been able to replicate in a remote environment. And it's one of the only things that I just don't know how to replicate in a remote environment. Like, I think remote work is good for everything except that like team lunch. Like, it's so hard to, it's very, very difficult to have the sort of unstructured conversations that happen at lunch that lead to great ideas and team bonding and people feeling like they can speak to their colleagues outside of a very formal, like, I have written an agenda, we're going to talk about XYZ. It's nice to be able to just have an unstructured conversation because it helps surface things that are like tensions, but not such big tensions that they require a meeting. More just like, I don't know, it's tough to deal with this tool. And then you go, why? Tell me about that. What's going on with that tool? And like those sorts of conversations they're organic and they emerge very quickly, but they don't happen on scheduled phone calls. So I don't know how you replicate team lunch. And planning is just there's just something so nice when I can write something on the board and somebody else can like circle it and draw an arrow and point to something else and say, are these the same thing? And then you go, oh yeah, you're right. Whereas like email or Slack or even a video call is just so much harder to do that. You have to approach that. Approaching is actually not terrible advice. I have found that loitering until somebody acknowledges me works better. I'll just stand off to the side and look nonchalant until somebody's like, hey, have I met you before? I'm like, no, you haven't. Hello. Literally stumble into people. Maybe. Not me. I can't do that. If I stumble into people, I'm too big. I knock them around. Carry marbles in your pocket just in case. Yeah. No, wait. Hold on. What are we doing here? Are we? This is starting to sound like spycraft. Virtual lunches. I have not had success with them. And this also could be a symptom of the type of work that I was doing. But I was working as an executive at the time, and I had a 7-hour-a-day meeting load minimum. So the idea of adding an extra meeting to have a virtual lunch was like the absolute last thing I ever wanted to do. And even for folks who had, I think, 1 or 2 meetings a day, adding extra meetings they were always resistant to it, right? Because a meeting is, okay, we're about to touch one of my like deep psychic scars here. A meeting is a loss of autonomy. And what I mean by that is when I have a scheduled day, I have specific things that I cannot do. Like, if I know that I have to be on meetings from X time to X time, I cannot do something that would take me too far away from my computer before that meeting, right? And so it's this sort of, it's like a tiny cage that you build. And every meeting you add sort of constricts that tiny cage. And I remember when I was an executive, I basically I had to end meetings a few minutes early so that I had time to go to the bathroom. Right? It was this whole thing. I was so chock-a-block full, and then I would like take a meeting with my camera off so that I could eat. Right? Stuff like that was just so, it was absolutely out of control. And there were a lot of reasons that it was out of control. And many of them were not necessarily the meetings themselves, but more the culture of like how bad we were in general at managing communication and stuff as a company. And that's all. I think a lot of companies do this, where meetings sort of take the place of formal processes or trust, right? So you have a meeting, and then you have a meeting to verify the meeting, and then you have a meeting to ratify the results of the verification meeting. And that, I get it. Like so lots of things I could have done differently, but the even when I wasn't an executive, I've always had this sort of resistance to a schedule, and that's made a lot of parts of my life really hard, because I would try to like find a thing. I want to do a thing, so I'm going to carve out time for it, and I'd put it on my calendar. And as soon as there was like a standing block of time on my calendar, every instinct in me would rebel and be like, no, I don't have to do stuff when my calendar tells me to do stuff. I'm the boss, which is a patently ridiculous thing when I'm the one who wrote the calendar. But for whatever reason, it just triggers that part of my brain that's like, no, I don't do that. I do what I want. So I have to work in more of a all that pushing back to the original idea of like a virtual lunch is if you schedule time for being social, I find it very hard to be social. Like, it doesn't feel social. It feels like we're just having another meeting because it's time boxed, and it's we had to start it here. I think, and by contrast, lunchtime is always basically the same time, but there was something special about being at my desk and saying, it's about lunchtime. And then I would stand up and I'd look around to see who was there, and I'd just start recruiting people and say, hey, let's go to lunch. And I'd get, 6 people together. We'd all go out to, Taco Deli outside the IBM offices, and we'd get lunch and we'd just chat. And it led to these really kind of serendipitous moments that I don't know that I could have gotten that same group of people to agree to a lunch meeting. I don't know that I had the chutzpah to actually like schedule it, to do the calendar wrangling, to find a time that all those people would be available. And also, had we not had the ability to just like eat in the downtime, I don't know if the meeting ever would have gotten past the awkward phase of like, we just kind of need to be in each other's presence long enough to feel okay saying the first sentence. And I think that all of that is my misgivings about like why I really like the idea of like in person sometimes, not all the time. I actually think all the time is patently worse than all the time remote. Like, if it has to be all of one or the other, I'm going all remote because there's way more upsides. But again, perfect world, about a day a week, or even just a lunch a week. Like, we'll get together in the morning, do some like admin stuff, get our planning out of the way, make sure everybody's clear on what their deliverables are and stuff, and then go to lunch, and then everybody can go wherever they want, right? And you got the rest of the week to yourself. I actually do really think that would be my perfect setup. And then planning weeks would be heavily in office because it's just easier to be around a whiteboard. Hey, what's up, Ray? How you doing? It's good to see you. Dolt it? Is that I don't know what that is. Is that like an inside joke? It is really, I mean, even on a virtual lunch, like I've done a few of them, and I did, like, they were fun, but it is definitely, it feels different to me. I think so. Yeah, actually, Jem, what you're talking about is really maybe what it is that the meeting can't be the purpose, if that makes sense. So like when you play a game, everybody's there because they want to do this activity, and it's voluntary to be there. If you're getting lunch, people need to eat, and it's voluntary to be there. You can eat your lunch at your desk if you want. So the conversations they sort of emerge from the filling the space between doing the activity. And I think that there's some dynamic that shifts there where you don't have to talk. You're not expected to even have a conversation. You're there to play a game. You can all sit quietly if you want and just focus on the game. And it's the same with lunch. You can just sit quietly and focus on your lunch. But you usually don't. You usually will make small talk, which leads to maybe a deeper conversation, which leads to, just it creates a little more connection in a slightly less structured and a slightly more organic way that I don't know how to do organic things inorganically, I guess, is maybe my big challenge. I think the activity tends to create an organic opportunity. Yeah, 10 a.m. call on a Monday and then crank for the rest of the week. I actually love that. I think that's a great way to roll. That's how you read the hashtag. Oh, dolt anyways. Oh, geez. I didn't think about that. That is very funny. But okay. All right. So we're another hour in. Look at us go. We are now at 560, and I am almost 100% convinced that this is Twitter misrepresenting numbers. If you're watching from Twitter, make any comment. Put an F in the chat. Something to let me know that you're a real person watching on Twitter. Yeah. All right. So I guess the other thing that we could talk about here is, let's talk a little bit about the time management side of things, because this is the other big piece. Like I'm going to take on this challenge, and I want to just do it anyways. And I think that's good. Like I'm happy to give myself constraints. I'm happy to give myself challenges. But I also have to be realistic that, like, I do a lot during the week to keep my business running. Like I have, tons of meetings. I'm building projects for clients. I'm writing stuff and coordinating things. I got a bunch of travel coming up. I got talks I got to write. So there are a lot of things that I'm on the hook to do that I can't, or at least very much shouldn't, lose track of and delay on. So that means that I have to be able to both context switch throughout the day effectively, and I have to be able to make time in a way that doesn't balloon the amount of time that I'm working. Because I think the instinct that I have is to just say, well, I'm going to add 2.5 hours of video time. But I don't have 2.5 hours to add without turning my day into 12 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is, because I'm gonna, and I also don't want to give up stuff. Like I could theoretically give up this stream, but I really like this stream. I like hanging out with y'all, and also look at this. We've not a single comment from Twitter, which leads me to believe that nobody's actually watching it. I think Twitter's misrepresenting its numbers. Oh, Elon. Anyways, okay. So that being said, so I have to be able to make time in a way that doesn't like force me to make these really uncomfortable trade-offs with like personal time or freedom or things like that. So what I did yesterday was I got back to my studio. So yesterday was wild. I had meetings, and then we wanted to get lunch. So we like stepped out to get lunch, and as I turned a corner, the tire on my car just went fully flat. Like didn't feel flat, suddenly was like thump, 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 like all the way flat. So we pulled over, we called roadside assistance. Turns out the model of car I have doesn't have a spare tire. It's got like the flap in the back under the trunk where a spare tire should be, but there's just like a little patch kit in there. So whatever. Didn't know that. So I called somebody to do the thing because it was raining, and I don't know how to, I do know how to change tire, but I don't really know how to change tire. Whatever. And it's included in our plan, our insurance. So I was like, whatever, just let somebody deal with it. So they show up. Turns out we don't have a spare. So we got to call a tow truck. And, they're like, well, the tow truck will be there. Like, I don't know. We'll see when. And this whole time I'm kind of counting down toward a meeting that I have to have. And I was like, well, I guess this means I can't make a video, right? And so Marissa agreed to sit with the car because I needed to go take this meeting. And so I went and I got on the bus, and I rode the bus back to the studio, and I got here and I had like 14 minutes before my call. And so what I would traditionally do is I would sit down and I would scroll Twitter, right? I would look through what people are talking about. I'd respond to some messages, so on and so forth. And I sat down to start doing exactly that. And I was like, what am I doing? I can make this video in 10 minutes. I just need to do it. So I found this crack in my day, like this dead space between where I was right now and the next thing that I was on the clock to do. I didn't have enough time to like put meaningful work into the demo app that I'm building for a company. And I didn't have time to like respond to a bunch of emails, but I did have time to do this video. So I just grabbed my camera and I set it up, and I mean, you saw the video. I shot it very like simple, wide. And so I shot that video in like 5 minutes. And then before the call, I was able to transfer the files and get them into my editing software. No, I didn't do any editing, but I like got the project set up, and then I saved that and I started my call. And that like 15 minutes was extraordinarily productive, where I would have traditionally done literally nothing, just kind of goofed around on the internet. And so that's sort of what I'm getting at when I say make time, and what I'm trying to do with making time is recognizing all the little ways that I let my day slip by with sort of filler habits. Like, I'm not going to replace things that are important to me. I'm not going to stop doing this stream. I'm not going to stop learning with Jason. I'm not going to stop going to lunch with my wife. I'm going to look at the moments where I will, wake up in the morning and spend 45 minutes on my phone goofing around on Twitter because I don't want to get out of bed yet, right? I could get out of bed and make a whole video before I would even usually start my day. Like that's the kind of make time that I need to be thinking about is where are not the things that I want to replace, but literally the cracks in my day where time was just falling through. There was no like result. It was just me killing 30 minutes between this thing and that thing. That's where I'm really going to be focused on is trying to do that in a way that doesn't make me feel too constrained or like I'm not allowed to look at my phone. Like I don't do well with constraints. I have a really, like, even if I'm the authority, I have a really big problem with authority figures. So it's not about depriving myself of anything. It's more about just recognizing when I was doing something because I wanted to kill time and not because I actually wanted to do it. So that'll be a big challenge for me. And then I guess the other piece of it too is thinking about the editing and time management there, where I really like to edit and I really like to make my edits complicated. So doing that sort of thing quickly is very hard for me, like to the point that I sort of actively recoil from it. And I think yesterday I probably spent, I don't know, maybe 2 hours editing the video, which is probably longer than I should have. Like, and so here's the second piece of this challenge for me is constraining what I'm doing with the edits so that I'm doing something that I'm proud of. Like, I want to make a video that I like, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make a video that uses every idea I have. Because I can't, if I give up 2.5 hours to these videos every day, that is going to turn into, there's no way that it's sustainable beyond the 2-week challenge, right? And what I'd love to get to is maybe I've got enough templates or enough sort of like baseline ideas around the way I'm doing text or something where I can put together something that feels like me in 20 minutes, and then any extra time is for like the one big idea that I had. That I think is the secondary goal here, is to get enough reps that I've got sort of an instinct for like what is a Jason video, so that I can throw one together and feel proud of it without spending more than half an hour on like a 3-minute video, right? Like, I think 10 minutes per minute is a good editing metric for me, because I know how to edit. What I don't know how to do is stop editing. And I think that's the instinct I need to build, is like when I'm done. 2.5 hours. I mean, and to be clear, like I do think I went way faster than I normally would. Like a typical video for me, I would spend days on. I think the web lunch video I edited, that one took me a solid week, I think. Like I was really like, I did a lot in that video, and it probably doesn't look like a lot, which was very intentional. Like I was going for a very specific thing. But it took me a really long time to get there and like think about the way that things were cutting. And so it just took me forever. But yeah, definitely a big challenge. Yeah, making a schedule and sticking to it is really hard. Like, especially if you've got the resistance to like any external authority, like, and I don't have a good answer. I mean, for me, it's the way that I've taken to it is like now I have my notebook, and my notebook is not a schedule, but like a stack rank of what must be done. Like I don't get to not do a few of the things in my book. If I and by knowing that those things are the things that need to be done, I sort of rearrange my day to let me focus on those things first. So like if I know that I have to turn in a project today, that's the thing I'm going to work on. Like I'm going to do that first, and then everything else isn't as urgent. So I will do that. And so for me right now, like I have this demo app that I'm building for a client. I have the video every day, and I've got a video shoot in London that I'm planning. Those are the things that I must focus on. The rest of it is a little less urgent. Like I'm waiting on responses from people. I got to follow up with some leads. I've got some meetings coming up. There's a proposal that I need to write. Those things are like, the proposal will become urgent, but not yet, like not today. Like it'll become urgent on Thursday if I haven't gotten to it yet. But that way I don't have to like block my time and say like work on thing 1 for 2 hours, lunch 1 hour, thing 2, 2 hours. I've never been able to function that way. So I have to go in much more of an organic, like prioritized, but not structured way, if that makes sense. So the big thing that stops me from video is that I do not like editing, and it feels too unpolished not to edit. I don't know that I would stress about it. Like the editing that matters is to watch the video, and if you stumble or repeat yourself, chop that out. But you can skip the rest of it, like the zoom in and out, and the text overlays and all that stuff that people like me do. It's just playtime for me. I do it because it's fun. The message, like I think it's worth it to take a few minutes to go through and just chop out the parts where you're completely off topic, or where you lost your train of thought, or where you stumbled and said the sentence again. Those sorts of things you should edit out. Everything else though is optional. And I think if you do that, you can get it to the point where you quickly recognize, and also you'll get better at recording. Like for example, when I'm recording a video, I will know roughly what I want to say, and I'll go through saying it. And if I screw up a sentence, I'll do something like, let me think of an actual sentence. So I'll just read my Do It Anyways challenge. So I'll say something like, I'm challenging myself to make a video every weekday for at least, pause so that I know that I made a mistake. And then I say, I'm challenging myself. I just do it exactly the same as I was doing it before until I get the sentence right. And then I know when I see that pause, I just go in, I figure out which was the good take, and I chop the rest out, and it compresses back together. And then I've got the video that I wanted. And it gives me opportunities to make mistakes without like destroying my ability to edit later. And that is tough because my instinct is to keep going. Like, I'm challenging myself to make a video for every day for a week for every day for a week for at least 2 weeks. You can't edit that. If you say it like that, well, I mean, you can, but it's not going to be good. So if you make a mistake, just pause, take a breath, say it again, and get it right. And then you have a clean take that you can edit quickly. In the rebel quadrant of Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies. Ooh, all right, let's look at this. Fun pseudoscience. I love fun pseudosciences. Gretchen Rubin 4 tendencies. Quiz. Ooh, there's a quiz. Let's do a quiz. All right. Have you kept a New Year's resolution where you weren't accountable to anyone? A resolution like drinking more water. Say like this one. What statement best describes your view about your commitments to yourself? Let's see. I bind myself as little as possible. This is a good question because what does a commitment mean? I would say probably this one then. Are you most likely to feel frustrated because your constant need for more information exhausts me? If y'all want to do this quiz, by the way, here, there you go. Do this if you want to. More likely to feel frustrated because my constant need for information exhausts me. As soon as someone expects me to do something, I don't want to do it. That's probably fair. I can take time for other people, but I can't take time for myself. Can't break. I would say this is probably more accurate. When you formed a healthy habit in the past, what helped you stick to it? Doing a lot of research, pretty good at sticking to habits, even when no one else cares. Only when I was answerable to somebody else. I guess it kind of depends, right? Like this is definitely true for like fitness goals, right? If I don't have a class or a trainer or something, no chance I'm going to stick to that habit. But like professionally, I'm here. Like if I want to change the way that I work, if I decide that I'm going to do it, I can do it. Let's go professional. If people complain about your behavior, you'd be least surprised to hear them say, good at taking the time to ask when others ask you to do something, but you're not good at taking time for yourself. You only do what you want to do when you want to do it. You ask too many questions. Probably one of these two. Maybe this one. Refuses to be bossed by others. That's probably true. If they ask me to do something, I'm less likely to do it. I think well, even if they're a boss or client, that one is definitely not true. I would say neutral on that one. I do what I think makes the most sense according to my judgment, even if that means ignoring the rules or other people's expectations. That one is definitely true. Commitments to others should never be broken, but commitments to myself can be broken. Again, depends on what the commitment is. Sometimes I won't do something I want to do because someone wants me to do it. No, I don't factor, like, it wouldn't be like if I wanted to do something and somebody was like, you should do that thing, like that would reverse psychology me and reverse psychology me. That phrase was not worth the effort I put into it. But that wouldn't be, that's not me. That's not how I roll. Describe myself as a people pleaser? Nope. I don't mind breaking rules or violating convention. I often enjoy it. That is true. Oh, fine. You got me. I look forward to whoever you're about to sell my emails to. Questioner. I think this actually probably makes sense. Like, if you can get me on board, I'm very big on like the, if you've got a well-supported reason for why something is the way that it should be, and I don't have a counter argument, I'm on board. Like I'll do the thing that you want to do. Motivated by reason, logic, and fairness. Yeah. Okay. All right. I would say this is directionally accurate. I have a lot of a lot of questions about, well, that's very funny that I just did that. Good for starting. Yeah, a little science. Yeah, I would say that feels about right, because there was a lot of nuance in these questions that sort of forced people into a box that I don't necessarily think is true. Between upholder and rebel, I'd like, yeah, that, you know what, that makes sense, Ray. I can see that for you. We all knew the email was coming. I didn't know I guess I did know the email was coming. I didn't think that through. Well, that was fun. That's the first little quiz. Where's everybody else at? Did anybody else do this quiz just now? Working on it. All right. Pseudoscience, indeed. I love a good pseudoscience, though. It is always fun. I remember. What was yours, Bruno? Did y'all do? Who here is old enough to remember The Secret, the book The Secret? If you haven't heard of this book, don't worry. It is full blown. I'm going to call it nonsense. If you loved the book, I'm sorry, but it is basically nonsense. It was definitely like, yeah. So the Secret was this book that was like how to have everything you've ever wanted, and basically, if you were to compress The Secret down into the blog post that it should have been, its thesis statement was, if you wish for it, it will come true. And as ridiculous as that sounds, I actually don't think that it's incorrect in the loosest sense of the word correct. The apotheosis of magical thinking. You're correct. Yes, it was. So the thing that was fun about this book, though, is it did this really interesting thing where it took something that I think is true in like an abstract sense, and it tried to present it as being true in the concrete sense. And what I mean by that is, if you want to do something, if you center that thing in your thoughts, you will make choices that move you toward that goal, right? So the idea that if you want to be, I don't know, if you want to learn Spanish and you put Spanish in your path at every step, you're going to get better at Spanish because it's there. It's a thing that you're going to do, right? And if you're thinking about, like, I don't know, you want to accomplish, you want to write a book, and your book is like centered in your view when you start your day, as you're moving through your day, then you'll like make choices that help you get closer to that goal, just because it's there, right? It's top of mind. You're present with that goal, and it's harder for it to like become a peripheral thing. But where it gets ridiculous is when, you know, if you start saying like, well, if I get a vision board and I just put up pictures of stacks of cash, like I'll be rich. Like that's not how that works, right? That's when it gets into the very magical thinking where you're sort of like asking the universe to provide and not doing any work to get the universe to provide for you. Self-realization bias kind of thing. I think so. I think it's, I would say it's more like it's in computer science terms, like an LRU cache, where you have, like, when you think something, it goes into the stack, and it's the most recent thing you thought about. So when you look over, you say, yes, this is what I'm thinking about. And then as you think other things, it goes further and further down in the stack until eventually it pops off the bottom and you're not thinking about it anymore. It's just kind of exited your mind. And so I have had thoughts in the past, like, maybe I'll run a marathon. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, maybe someday. And it just down until it popped off the stack. And I never thought about it again because really, I don't want to run a marathon. It's not interesting to me. But with like these video things, I very much kept it at the top of the stack. Like I'm thinking about it all the time because it's a thing I really want to do. And that leads me to sort of, when I get presented with an option, like, do you want to do X or Y? And I'm looking at my priority list over here, this goal over here, and I look at these two options and I go, okay, well, which one of these two is going to get me a little closer to that, right? And in that thought, I am more likely to make a choice that will take me closer to the thing that's top of my goal stack, because not because I'm like manifesting it, but because I'm being mindful. I'm aware that I made a choice to do a thing. I'm thinking about the thing. It's at the top of my stack always. So then when I'm presented with options, I choose the option that takes me here. I think that's all there is to it, right? Is if you keep it forefront, if you keep a goal at the forefront, you then will use that goal as a filter for your actions. If the goal is way down at the bottom and you're not thinking about it at all, it can't filter because it's not present in your mind. You're not like paying attention to it, right? So for longer term goals, one of the biggest challenges is not losing steam, because the progress is always going to be slow and there's going to be a million things that come up and there's always something else to focus on, something else to worry about. So the secret is basically telling you, take that thing that's important to you and put it in front of your face, and make sure that it's always in front of your face, so that even when you're, overwhelmed and frustrated and whatever, you're still thinking about that thing that's important to you. So you don't need to read the book. It is what I just said is that's the whole thesis of the book. You don't need anything else. But it was really interesting because it was funny to watch how it went in multiple different directions. Like some people truly believe this, like they were making vision boards and saying like, the universe will bring me what I ask for. And then making zero lifestyle changes and expecting magical results, right? And then I think other people took it as just absolute bunk and said like, well, you can't just like imagine something and get it. But I think somewhere in the middle is more accurate, where where you put your energy is will inform what you get back, right? Like if you're focused on something, you're gonna put energy in that direction, and that energy is gonna help you get to the thing that you're focused on, which is, callback moment. We're talking about positivity versus negativity and your outlook and your mindset. Like, this is the secret in action. If you have a positive mindset and you are putting positive, fun things out into the world, you put energy in that direction, and that energy reflects back at you, right? And the same is true with negativity. Like in both cases, you are choosing, like, positivity, everything gets a little bit better all the time. Negativity, everything gets a little bit worse all the time, right? You get to set your baseline. And this sort of like, what's the thing I'm going to focus on is what determines the trajectory of that baseline. Like, I want to be trending up toward just a little bit happier every day. And because of that, I have to consciously navigate away from the negative, resentful, bitter thoughts, and try to find the more hopeful and optimistic, and not optimistic in like it's all going to work out even if we don't do anything, but optimistic in like, it can work out if we put the work in, right? That hopeful, that brighter take. That level of effort in my thinking, I think, changed my defaults to see the opportunities in problems as opposed to seeing the faults in successes, if that makes sense. Like when I do something poorly, I'm not thinking about all the ways that I screwed up. I'm thinking about all the little things that could have gone better that would have made it great, right? So you're looking for like, how do you make this better? Or like, how could this have gone worse? And whatever you choose to believe, I think you tend to guide yourself that way. It's like almost like a horse, right? Like they follow the direction of their vision. Like if you turn their head, the whole body turns. I think that our relationship with the world is like that. Like where we look is where that's where we go, And so if we want to be happier, even if we're not happy right now, turning yourself toward that and deciding that that's the way that you're going to function helps become a positive reinforcement loop, where that your positivity going out leads to positivity coming back, which reinforces the positivity going out. And it's a feedback loop, right? It strengthens itself by existing. And the longer you can keep that going, the stronger it goes and the easier it is to maintain. So I think it's who knew? The secret is the core of my entire philosophy. Oh, geez. All right. Is the video, did it drop? Is it rough? I need to figure out what's going on with, I have the good internet, and I'm tethered, like I'm on an Ethernet cable, and it's just not doing the thing, which is also running into the USB hub. So maybe it is the USB hub giving out on me. Worth checking into. Maybe I'll get a backup hub and see what happens if I switch over to a different one. Circling back to putting out good energy. Love it. Yeah, it saved 3 hours. You don't need to read the book. We nailed it. Watch this 5 minutes. You're golden. But yes, it definitely needs the action. Like that's sort of the thing. And a positive outlook on failures is like I think I am becoming more and more convinced that the only way to fail is to stand still, because any action brings information, and information is a success. Like if you learn, even if what you're learning is what doesn't work, the next time you do something, you're going to do a better job because you have more information. So the only way to really fail is to accept that your current status is the best it can be and to give up. Like that's the only true failure. Anything else is information gathering, which allows you to do more. Well, I guess the other side is like if you did something that killed you, but like I'm not talking about extreme sports. I think that everything I talk about falls apart when you bring something like athletics into it. But when we're talking about, professional pursuits, when we're talking about hobby pursuits, I think that there's very, very little that we can do that will actually like end our existence, right? And we can make giant risks that I guess could cause a lot of harm, like, full financial ruin. So calculated risk is also very important. And, I'm always thinking about like, I don't want to push myself more than 10% outside of my comfort zone at any given time, because I want to be growing, but I don't necessarily want to be like flailing, right? Like I want to be constantly pushing myself toward bigger and better things, but with the support of my existing skill sets to carry me. And I think that's the momentum that you build, right? Because the more, like, every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone gets bigger, and there are more things you can do with confidence, which means that you can take on bigger and bigger risks. And like if you're at like, percentages are relative. And so the idea of like getting 1% better every day, there's a chart that I love. It's a James Clear chart. I've probably showed it on the stream before. 1% better. This chart here. This is what percentage-based improvements. This is 1% better every day. So it goes nonlinear, right? Like you're improving so much more by the end because you've built this foundation at the beginning. And the idea of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, like maybe 1 to 10% outside of your comfort zone doesn't feel like very much when you're first starting, but 10% when you're on this end of the spectrum, that's a big jump, right? You can go far and still feel really confident because you got all of this confidence, all this proof that you can do things behind you, all this experience and practical information. So all that to say, like, trying stuff is really, I guess that's if I could boil down my entire philosophy of the world into like one sentence, it's just keep trying stuff. That's it, because the only way to fail is to not try, and the only way forward is to try. Like that's it. If you do stuff and you pay attention to what you're doing and you use the information to do better next time, you can't help but succeed, because you will eventually get enough information that you can't do a bad job. Like, you may never be the world's greatest, but only 1 in 8 billion people gets to be the world's greatest, right? So don't worry about being the world's greatest. Just worry about being better than you were yesterday. And I guarantee you will get to a point where a lot of people see you and go, dang, they're really good at that. Progress is a weird thing, but yeah, remember that a lot of this stuff is, it goes nonlinear if you think about compounding progress. The secret with action. Yeah, kind of up and down. Yeah, I do think my USB hub might be on its way out, because it has been a recent, like, last couple of months thing where I'm seeing the weird, like, drops and stuff like that. So might need to do that. Yeah, I mean, and I think the part that's hard too is that it's like, momentum is such a hard thing, and building out momentum in a way that meaningfully, or that feels meaningful, especially when we're talking about this idea of like 1% every day. You know, if you've got zero momentum, 1% better than zero does not feel like very much at all. It might feel like literally nothing. And for weeks, for months, for right now, if you're trying to break into the industry, it might take you a full year, to build that momentum. But once you get the boulder rolling, if you can keep your motivation through the terrible beginning where it feels like nothing is happening, and you push until that boulder starts rolling, the rate that it picks up speed as it rolls down the hill is kind of astonishing. And like, if you look at places where you've done this in your life, maybe, I mean, I don't know. For me, certainly several times, there's the big period that I would call the pit of despair or whatever, where I'm looking at my progress, my taste, what I think is possible, and what I'm capable of producing, and I'm just like, this is trash. Like, I can't make anything that I like. I can't make something that's even remotely as good as what other people are making. Why bother? And it's really, really hard to fight through that why bother. But every time I come out the other side eventually, weeks, months, years later, and I'm making stuff that when I look back at what I was making at the beginning, it's kind of hard to even comprehend how much progress I've made. And then it seems like the progress really does go nonlinear, because stuff that I was making in 2015 or whatever, compared to stuff that I built in 2018, compared to stuff that I built this year, the leap between 2015 and 2018, or 2016 and 2020, to give it an even number of years, but like 2016 to 2020 and 2020 to today, I'm building stuff that, like, really, I don't even think 2016 me could comprehend some of the stuff that I'm able to do. Not because I studied really hard or anything, but because my compounding knowledge continually expands the scope of what I'm capable of. And every time I learn something, that becomes another tool in my kit that I can apply later on, so that when I learn something new, like when I dive into, I don't know, building a machine learning thing, or trying to figure out how to use WebSockets to do something fun, like, I'm not learning all the foundational pieces that make that work. I'm just learning the new thing. And I can go so much faster because I have this foundational knowledge. But I didn't have that in 2003 when I was starting. I barely understood how HTML worked. And then in 2009, when I was, doing my agency stuff, I had a much better understanding of, like, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but, like, I didn't really get the JavaScript. I was more of a PHP dev, right? And that, from there to now, like, the various paths that I've gone through and the things that I've learned and the way that all that information is stacked, I never could have predicted how I learned getting me to where I am. But I knew, and I still know, that all this stuff I'm learning has varying levels of usefulness, and almost none of it was detrimental. There's very little that I've learned. Actually, I'm trying to think. Is there anything that I've learned that I wish I hadn't learned? I don't think, even stuff that doesn't work anymore. Like, I spent a lot of time building ActionScript, and then Flash got killed, and all of my ActionScript knowledge was useless, technically. But like the foundational things that I learned about building Flash sites, all of that translated into my JavaScript career that followed. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see that I've continually told myself that learning is learning is learning, and like knowledge is always going to give me some advantage. You know, it just expands the playing field of, I think of it like in games, there's the fog of war. Like if you play Civilization or whatever, you've got your, you start out and you can see this much of the map. And then every time you kind of walk into the fog, you get a little bit bigger view and you can see what's going on and make better decisions because of it. That to me, 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 that. This is a fun thing that's happening now. Glad that we're here. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's broken. But anyways, knowledge is good. Knowledge is power. What G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. Yeah, apparently going shopping for a new USB hub today. Yes. So if you've got one that you like, especially if you've been pushing a lot of bandwidth through it, like streaming and Ethernet and stuff like that, and you've got one that's dependable, please do share, because apparently I need one. And great, happy, love spending money on junk like this. So, okay. Anyways, I don't have Ethernet on this MacBook. Yeah, there's no Ethernet on the laptop itself, so I run the Ethernet cable into the USB hub and then into the laptop. Yeah, exposing the map helps you see where you get stuck, and I think that's like, I don't know. I think there's no better like future preparation in my mind than trying to just learn everything about everything. And I'm not sure how I did this. I think I owe a lot to my parents for sort of pushing me to learn all sorts of stuff when I was a kid, even if I didn't want to. Like, this is something where I think my parents were kind of hard asses, especially my dad, but they wouldn't let me give up on stuff. And my dad would kind of repeatedly tell me, like, I would say, like, this is too hard. And he'd say, it's not too hard. You just haven't learned it yet. And he was maybe less nice about it than that. But he'd basically say, like, you're not leaving until you finish this. And he would just make me learn stuff. And eventually I learned that if I focused on breaking down the task into something I could do it. And if I focused all my energy on like hating my dad for making me do chores, I wouldn't learn anything, and I'd also never be able to stop, right? So it was sort of like maybe not the best scenario for learning how to learn, but it was the right like forcing factor that made me learn how to learn. And because of that, the amount of things that it's fun for me now. Like, the act of learning is actually a big part of the reward for learning new things. When I get to do something for the first time, there's this thrill to me for like breaking it down into steps and trying to understand what are the core mechanics. Like, if, even like I just played pickleball for the first time since high school a couple weekends ago. And I had not done that. Like, sports are not a thing that I do a ton of. Like, it's fun for me to play, but none of my friends are really like sports people. And I'm definitely not like a self-starter sports person. So I'll go if somebody wants to go, but like it's not like a thing I plan. But we get to pickleball, right? And so we're there, and the rackets are different than I remember them being. There's, it's different than tennis, it's different than racquetball, it's different than ping pong. But I've played all of those a little bit, like in varying stages when I was a kid. And so I have this different information in my head about like sort of what happens when you hit a ball with a racket, sort of how it's going to happen, when people throw stuff back at me, the rules of different games. And so I just started like building a list in my head of like, okay, so these are the things that I know. These are the rules that I'm learning. These are the things that I'm seeing happen. How do I like shortcut between what I know and like what I need to know, and see if I can get from like cover my skill gap as quickly as possible. And I am not good at pickleball, but I was able to play. Like we were doing volleys, we were keeping the ball alive, and it was our first time playing, right? And that was my first time playing. My mom is actually really good at pickleball, it turns out. But so we were able to like play and keep the ball going instead of me just like whiffing it and missing every time and all that kind of stuff. So I think but that act of trying to figure out like how can I get from zero to pickleball was in itself rewarding. Like the act of trying to learn how to learn pickleball was a tiny reward. And then learning pickleball was another reward. So I've got like dual reinforcement when I take on something new. Where I get to enjoy it twice. Like I get to enjoy being bad at it because I'm enjoying learning. And then I get to enjoy being good at it because I stuck with the learning because I was having fun, right? And to me, that's sort of the thing of I don't know, if I had a secret weapon, I would say it was that. Is that at some point I learned how to really have a good time being bad at stuff. If that makes, like I don't tie my ego to my ability to complete a task that I've done once or never. Because like that's ridiculous. Like being sad because I can't do something that I've literally never practiced is a great way to feel sad all the time. But I'd rather have fun. I'd rather embrace the fact that like there's no, it doesn't matter. Like I can be bad at things and it's still fun because I'm still learning and I'm gaining a new set of skills that hopefully will turn into actual talent at the thing, because I'll have built the set of skills that kind of form the foundation for real talent, or even, and even if it's not like I don't need to be a world-class pickleball player, but it's fun to be able to play with my folks and know that I'm not just like making them bored because I'm so bad at it, right? I want to be good enough that we can play and like laugh and have fun. I don't intend to ever compete in pickleball. Like it's not, I don't know, it's not like a thing that I want to dedicate my life to, but I'd love to be able to be good enough that when my mom wants to play, it's an activity we can do together. So all that being said, I don't know, it's kind of fun to like build those maps in my brain. I am using a CalDigit T3. I might just need to get another T3 because I think that's the one that everybody likes. How many USB ports do I need? I don't know, let me check. I am actively using 5 USB-C ports and an HDMI port and an Ethernet port. It would be nice to have more, but I'm cool with having less. Might be. I would definitely be fun to be a world-class pickleball player. Like I think it's really fun to be good at things. Like I think this is the gap between like the work and the payoff is like it is so much fun to be excellent at something. Like when again 20 plus years of programming experience, I am not the world's best programmer, but I am really freaking good, right? I can do just about anything in programming if I set my mind to it, because I just have so much practice and it is so much fun. I mean, you'll see how much fun I have on this show and how much fun I have on Learn with Jason. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever really learning to program anymore. I feel like I'm just playing. And I feel like that must be what it's like when you're a world-class like jazz pianist and you can just sit down on a piano and just play. Like anything that comes to your mind, yeah, I know how to make that sound. I know how to play that song. Of course, yeah, whatever. I've never heard that song before. Play it for me for a second. Yeah, I got that. Like, what a superpower that must be to be able to sit down at an instrument and just do whatever comes to mind because you know it so well that there's no rules anymore. You know exactly how to push the keys to get exactly the outcome that you want. That's how I feel about programming, and it's got to feel that way about everything. Like, what must it feel like to be as good at tennis as Serena Williams? Like, that's got to be thrilling to just be, and like, I know how much work goes into that. And this is part of why I think that like the athletics thing breaks down, is because with knowledge, you just kind of have to kind of keep thinking and you retain your knowledge. Athletics, I don't think it's like that. You don't get to take like these big long breaks. You got to keep working to stay at like peak form. But God, it's got to feel good to be that good at something like that. You know, like it's just really amazing. Not being able to be awesome at everything is definitely a bummer, right? I think that, and this is a big. I think this is like the dual feeling is like, it is very fun to learn things. It is very fun to be good at things. And if it's not fun to learn, it can be really demoralizing to be bad at things because it's directly in competition with that feeling of being good at things. So if we can find a way to make the learning itself, like I'm good at learning, so even if I'm bad at the thing I'm learning, I'm good at breaking down how to get better at the thing I'm learning. And this part becomes rewarding. The breaking down and the learning and the practicing, that part becomes interesting because in my head, I'm hacking my brain. I'm like, I'm like Neo in the Matrix. Like, okay, if I do this just right, I can like push the buttons on my brain that will make me better at this faster. And that part is really fun and rewarding. And then that helps me get through the slog here so that I can be good at this also. And when I'm good at this, then I get the reward of being good at it. But I have to, I didn't get the reward when I sucked. So I had to supplement that with this reward of learning. And I've never really been able to articulate. I think this is the best I've ever articulated this feeling. And I still don't think I've done a very good job of it because it's, I don't know, words in this sense are both easy and hard because it's easy for me to say this stuff. I have no idea how to communicate, how to feel it. How do you teach somebody to learn how to learn? No idea. Literally no idea. Like I learned it when I was young enough that I don't really even remember what happened. I have some theories about how I was raised and the way that my parent, I told you how my parents would like force me to do chores and not let me get out of them by whining. Those sorts of things were like, I know what worked for me. And I've got my survivorship bias of like how I did things and maybe you could do them that way too. But y'all are adults. You don't get to get locked in your garage by your parents and say, look, figure out how to sweep this garage properly or you can't go play video games. I guess you could. I don't know if it would be the same level of motivation that I had, but like, so each of us is going to have to find our own path here and figure out the right way to find the intermediate rewards that get us to the long-term payoffs. But I think that to me is that's sort of the game that I'm always playing with myself is not just like, how can I pick a goal that will take me years to achieve and then just like slog through it and be angry and be grumpy but it's okay because I'm doing this in service of this big goal in the future. I don't work that way. I don't have long-term perseverance through stuff that I hate. I have to have the short-term rewards. And so for me, it's about building a path that's full of little payoffs. And each of those little payoffs helps make it worth it to stick through it to the longer thing. And I think that makes my path a little more winding. Like I am pretty slow to get to stuff because I'm not in a hurry, if that makes sense. Like I'm just trying to vibe because it's fun to do the thing I'm doing. It's fun to learn. It's fun to grow. And when I eventually become good at the thing, it'll be fun to be good at the thing, but it's not urgent, I don't know. I think about that a lot. Is learning how to learn, is that a good course? I haven't seen that one. I hope not as adults. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess your parents can lock you in the room and make you do chores as at any age, but I don't know. I don't know how much I would listen to my parents if they tried to force me to sweep a garage today. I'd like get on TaskRabbit and be like, "Oh, you want your garage swept? Here, I hired a TaskRabbit, Dad. Suck it." Definitely taking the just trying to vibe approach. Yeah, there's this book that I read when I was younger. I don't know if it's actually good, but it was really impactful when I was like 14, and it was called, shoot, I think it's called Reflections. Hold on, I'm looking it up. Illusions. It's a book by Richard Bach. It's like 80 pages. It's super short. And it seems like it's going to be a religious book, and it's not, I promise. But it's called The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, and it's basically like set around this idea of the things that feel like miracles are somebody giving themselves permission to do them. And there's this opening parable, effectively, where it talks about these creatures that live on the bottom of a river, and they, the current is strong, and so they spend their whole lives kind of like clinging to the rocks on the bottom to make sure they don't get blown away. And when they, like, eventually one of them just gets tired of clinging, and he says, "What happens if I stop?" And everybody says, "Well, surely you'll die. You'll be killed. You'll be torn to shreds on the rocks." And he says, "Well, that's better than clinging, right? I'm going to find out." And so he lets go. And for a minute, he kind of tumbles, but then the current picks him up, and he's just in the river. And the rest of the creatures are looking at this creature coming down river, saying, "Look, it's the Messiah. It's the Savior. He's flying. He's, look at the miracles. And, how do you, like, save us? What do we do? How do we have a better life?" And the creature says, "All you have to do is let go. Like, I'm not special. I'm not magical. I just let go. You can let go too." And they won't. Instead they build whole religions around him. And so I think I think about that a lot, like a lot, because I feel like that's the sort of, like, not necessarily religiously, but like with some of the, like, hero worship and some of the, like, reification of people, where we see somebody do something and our instinct is to say, "Wow, you're so special," instead of asking, like, what did you do to learn this, right? Because again, everything is knowable if you put the work in to know it. But you have to believe that, right? You have to kind of internalize that, and so much of this is just in giving yourself permission to be whatever you want to be. If you want to, be a programmer, great, you're a programmer. You wrote some code, right? Now the job isn't proving to yourself or anyone else that you're a programmer. It's about enjoying the process of getting better at it. And that, to me, is, again, it's like this this huge shift that I don't know how to teach. It's just a thing that, like, I'll say it a million times, and for people who have done it, they'll go, "Yeah, absolutely, it made such a big difference for me." And for people who haven't done it, they're like, "Yeah, but how do you do that? I can't do that. That's never possible." And for whatever reason, it just, like, you just can't, you can't see it until you see it. And then once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. It's like magic eyes. If you're looking at, like, a magic eye painting, where, at first it looks like nonsense, and then something changes and you've learned how to see it. Now you can see the hidden image, and you'll never be able to unsee it because now you know how it works, right? It's like learning the trick, like learning a magic trick. There's no actual magic in a magic trick, but until you've seen how the trick is done, and in this case, it's more internalizing how the trick is done, it's very difficult to imagine that it's anything other than magic. So yeah, that's something that I have been thinking about a lot. And okay, so this is a good point. You got to be careful not to fall into the Dunning-Kruger. The thing that I would argue is that it's very difficult to fall into Dunning-Kruger if you're not worried about looking smart. Like, what I mean by that is the whole letting go vibe that I'm pushing here is about not worrying whether or not anybody else thinks you're smart. It's about embracing that the point is the growth and exploration. And so if I'm in a meeting, I'm always asking questions. I'm always saying, well, I'm not sure if it works like this, but could it work? Like, is this possible? Right? Like you let go of this need to make proclamations and say, I know things, and because I know things, we must do it like this. And I think that's sort of the issue that I see with a lot of folks is that they learn something and they decide, well, now I'm smart and I must remain smart. So they start clinging to the islands of knowledge that they have in a way that can lead to this Dunning-Kruger, because it's the sort of the root of like, if all I have is a hammer, everything becomes a nail. Or I have always been told that I'm smart, so I must be smart. So if I'm in an unfamiliar situation, the fact that I'm smart in all these places must mean that I'm smart in this place as well, and therefore I should be trusted, even if you have no experience, right? I think that those sorts of things are they're much easier to avoid if you're not worried about how smart you appear to be, and are instead just kind of embracing the fun and the knowledge of this stuff. If you can just let go and say, like, I don't care if you think I'm smart, I'm having fun. Right? Like, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to make stuff. And if the stuff I make is good, nobody can tell me that it wasn't good. They can dislike me, or they can be unhappy with my methods, and I will have those conversations to figure out what I've done and what I can improve. And if it's something that's within my control, you know, I want people to enjoy working with me, and I want to be somebody that people want to be around. But at the end of the day, the goal for me is to make the best possible things, and there's a lot of reward in, you know, the best possible learning plan, the best possible result from a project, the best possible video that I can make. Any of those things is a thing that helps me grow in a way that's rewarding, and none of it is predicated on whether or not somebody else thinks I'm smart. Yeah. Mindset by Carol Dweck and Grit by Angela Duckworth, both very, very good books. 100%. I definitely think those are good ones. Yeah. And like, I'm saying all this like I get it right all the time. Like, please don't let me convince you that I have this all figured out. I say this stuff to remind myself to be this way, not because I think I am this way all the time. Like, I have my bitter moments and my jealous moments and my grumpy moments, and what I am trying to get better at doing is embracing those as like transitive things that they're here, and I can feel them, and I can try to figure out why I'm feeling them, and see if it's something that I can adjust, or if it's maybe just sometimes I'm just jealous, and it's okay to be jealous, and I'll be grumpy for a little bit, and then I'll just make the next choice. I'll do like Frozen 2 says, you just do the next right thing. It is easy to legitimately and honestly believe that you know more than you do. I think yes and no, because like I think that there's a level of you know what, I'm just gonna, you're correct, you are correct, because there is like an additional skill that comes in here, because I think when you are learning things, because you haven't uncovered the whole map, it can be really tempting to oversimplify and to say that, like, because you haven't seen the reason that something is done, it must be unimportant. And that does, I think that's a whole different skill, which is recognizing that, like, the things that are out in the world were built the way that they were built for a reason. It's there's an actual, like, thing. It's about like the country fence or something like that. But like the reasons that things were done might not be apparent, but there were reasons. Like, very rarely do people just do stuff out of pure chaos. And so they're not always good reasons, but there are reasons. And typically trying to understand the reasons before we make assumptions about what should or shouldn't be done next can be a great way to avoid that Dunning-Kruger moment. Chesterton's fence. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I think the Chesterton's fence is a very that's a good one to look into, and just to, keep in mind, like, I know that we make the joke that, like, legacy code and nightmares and append only and so on and so forth, but if you start digging into, like, what caused that code base to be like that, there's a long series of very reasonable decisions that led it to get to where it is. And there are a lot of reasons why it could have been better, or, things could be done differently, but it's very rarely that, like, this could have been 15 lines of code and it's 100,000 lines of code. Very vanishingly few systems actually can be simplified that much. Like, if you convince your team to do the full rewrite, by the time you get to full feature parity with the old code, it's probably going to be about the same size. Like, you'll have organized it differently and you'll have been able to make different architectural structure, but, like, all the edge cases are still there. All the business requirements are still there. And just because you couldn't see why that piece of code was there, you're going to learn about it when something breaks, or when something doesn't work the way that it used to. And you'll find yourself putting in those same escape hatches and those same edge cases and all those things. And again, you can improve the architecture. You can improve the core coding language if you want. You can like it better because it's your code instead of somebody else's code. But ultimately, the same complexity has to be there, because that's what the business is. The business is a ball of complexity. You're just representing it with code. So yeah, don't let that stuff get. Yeah, try not to get cocky, because the stuff we're writing today is the next person's legacy code that they're going to be like, what idiot wrote this? Like, let's just maybe stop thinking people are idiots. We're all pretty smart here. We're building stuff that is very complicated, and it requires a lot of trade-offs and deciding what is and isn't worth focusing on. Trade-offs are hard, y'all. And with that, we've hit 3 hours. I'm going to take a break, go get some lunch. I hope y'all have a absolutely wonderful week. I will be back on Thursday, and we're doing a great show. I am super excited to have. That's right, it is this week. It is Fred. Yes, okay, this is gonna be fun. Astro is doing a big release. I think today a big Astro release is happening, including their database offering, which I'm really, really excited about. Fred's gonna come on Thursday. We're gonna learn how it works. We're gonna try it out. So if you're interested in that, make sure you can subscribe to the channel, you can join the Discord, you can get on the newsletter, whatever you want to do to make sure that you get notifications. I will see you on Thursday, I hope. And then lots of good stuff coming up, so make sure you keep an eye on the calendar. You can get on the newsletter again if you want to be aware of what's going on. And if you're enjoying this channel and want to help out, please do, like, subscribe on YouTube, hit the like button. If you've got a few bucks to spare, consider, like, actually joining the channel. I think there's a $4 and a $10 option. That is money that I directly reinvest into the show itself, into making more videos and doing more stuff. Or if you don't have spare money, like, share it. Tell people what's going on, and tell people that I'm here, because it really does mean a lot, and it helps me make more of these. All right, y'all. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.